So
Hello,
welcome after Christmas. How was your
back from our
Christmas,
break.
actually, by the way?
It was great. How was yours?
It was nice. It was nice for sure. I wasn't too freaking out about, the traditions. No, I never do, but it's like, going out, skiing or doing something because it's the holidays, the kids have to go out and so on. I was like, yeah, whatever, just, whatever makes you happy. And it really worked well.
I think that's a thing that a lot of people learned this year, hopefully. And it seems like everybody's Christmas was a little bit not normal or usual,
No,
I guess, is
no.
the best way. But I don't know. I feel like this year, at least for us too, we kind of got back to more the meaning of Christmas and feeling the spirit of it, and more less about the gifts and less about that sort of side, and the obligation, feeling obligated to do these, just like I hate that feeling that people have around this holiday at certain times, where it's like they have this obligation or feeling that they have to go into debt, or they have to do this, or they have to go buy for 8 million people, and then they're worried about this, and it's like you're causing yourself all this stress, and I don't really think that's what it's about. But I mean, it's different for everybody, but at least to me, I don't think that's what it should be about.
Yeah, it's all cool to stress when you want to bring this gift to someone. Let's say it's if it's a child and they really desire something, or maybe I don't know. I was getting some presents that I would make, and it's like certain things have to fall into place. So if you have to get an order of, let's say, a wool in order to stitch a sweater or something, right? So things like that. I was like kind of anxious, but it was the good anxious, like
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's I
make this
think there's
person happy or something.
right, and that's what we were kind of just talking about, was the duality. And um I think that's, kind of interesting how there's all those different sides of, Christmas, and people, how, like I told you, the message from Jesus was saying with the, um, like you said, the kid who gets everything that they want, and that joy that it brings, and like how that's such a good thing for the world, that vibration, that lighting up the
Mhm.
world. And but then that kid may grow up to be someone who doesn't appreciate anything, and then that's or the kid may grow up to appreciate everything, and there's all these different sides of um the duality coin, really, that we think it's just one side of coin, but
And
it's
isn't it
all these
that
coins.
whatever happens is just bringing up the essence that is in that person?
That's a good question. I don't know if you can.
Because some
Probably.
people you never can spoil enough with gifts. They will always be humble.
That's true.
And some people you can give them anything and they're just never satisfied. I don't know, maybe it's just bringing up the essence of them. I don't know.
That's a good question. I'd be curious. It's kind of that nature versus nurture thing, right? Where is it
Mhm.
like how you were raised or how you are? And I don't know if those questions will ever be fully answered, because I don't know that,
It's true.
if you were able, like I've used that analogy 100 times with the alcoholic dad and the twin brothers, that were born saying, I am an alcoholic or I'm not. And it's both because of my dad. And I think so, people can look at any situation and have their own interpretation of it, and then that be the reasoning why they do or don't do something. And
You
so,
know
yeah,
what I'm
that's why I say
thinking?
that kid who gets spoiled at Christmas, now he might go spoil his kids and be totally appreciative and have, or it might be the opposite, like you said. And how do you know what was the cause or not? How do you even know that that was a cause? Or if, like you said, it's just how that person is.
How the person is. What I'm thinking also is not sure if I'm thinking it. I don't think I'm thinking it. It's funny. So when you don't get, because people, sorry, parents are scared that what if we spoil too much, this son or daughter, and then they grow up and they go after everything, you know they work 24/7, let's say, because this is how you have to get things in this world, unless you're struck by luck and you just like make one transaction and you become super rich.
Yeah.
um,
Yes.
and then they don't have enough, so they are chasing money like crazy. They're chasing assets, like crazy. And um, then it eventually still brings up who they truly are, or something like how hungry they grew up, or something.
Yeah, and I think there's an interesting like kind of dichotomy in there too, because there's the person who, has that, you know, want all these material things and this and that, who sees, and even my perspective on this is probably wrong too, but like, the whole, you got to put in the work to get the XYZ, right? Which in this new reality, I don't think that that's what it's necessarily we're moving towards, but that's, kind of the world that we grew up in. Um, but then there's the people who just think that because they exist, they deserve X, Y, and Z. And I think that's kind of the difference of the people that you're creating. Like the people that think that they are just entitled to everything because they are here, that's, I don't think that's the type of human that we are
You
trying to
mean the kind
create.
of birthright?
Yeah, well, I mean, I deserve, X, Y, or Z because I'm here. Like I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that we have, you know, food, water, shelter. Nobody really, I don't know. I'm kind of stuck in between two worlds because I don't really think that anybody deserves anything that they don't work for, and then I also see the other side of the coin too, where there's people who can't work for stuff. There's people that, so I see both sides of it, but I also, the people who are kind of out there demanding this, 1% pay their fair share when they're not paying anything because they want free stuff. And it's like, I don't agree with that at all. But, I think there's I don't know, there's an interesting kind of balance, I think, finding in there where I do think that there's people who work really hard and they don't reap what they sow either. So, they probably deserve a lot more than they get. So I don't know that, working hard equates, getting what you're necessarily looking for, but I do feel like there has to be some sort of give and take in there where you can't just expect everything and give nothing. And, the opposite shouldn't be true also, where you give everything and receive nothing. So there has to be some sort of, middle ground in there, I think.
So for me and for you, the hard work can be something else, right?
Well,
And
yeah, that's a interesting because one person's hard work is digging ditches and another person's hard work is coding on a computer, right? So
yeah,
they're both hard work, but it's totally different, opposite ends of the spectrum there. So
and different countries value it differently.
yeah,
So, like in Canada, for example, it can be very well paid, but maybe somewhere else, the construction is like, who do you think you are? You're just a labor. We're not going to pay you well, right?
yeah,
But here it is like it's a labor and it's like construction. It's a higher pay job. So a lot of people who are immigrants and they come here with degrees, they just end up being construction workers because the pay is much better, actually.
yeah. That's interesting. I mean, and that's kind of, I mean, if you think about, kind of how it should be in a way, the people who are doing the hardest work should make the most money, and the people not doing the hardest work shouldn't make the most money. So, but I don't know, the society we're moving towards, I'm not exactly sure how it all fits together with, especially the way we understand the world. Is we have it broken down into, our communism, socialism, capitalism, basically. And I feel like the future is going to be some sort of combination of those, as much as I cringe to think about, socialism and communism and stuff. But I mean, in theory, they're, they sound great, everybody's equal and that sort of thing. But obviously in practice with human nature, it's never going to end up the way it sounds in theory. Uh,
Mhm.
but I think the answer to all of it is, and we're kind of jumping all over topics here, but the putting in and getting out what you put in, there has to be that capitalistic side of it. And then I also think there should be, you know, there shouldn't be such a variance between the lowest and the highest either, though. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't allow people to flourish and make whatever they can make. I don't agree with that either. I think that it should be the opposite direction, where the higher the high goes, the lower the low goes too, right? It shouldn't be that there's this disparity going in both directions. It should just be they follow each other
Yeah.
sort of upwards in that direction. I think would be ideal if we could get to that in some way, which I think as humans evolve more, we'll be able to figure out ways that work better for everybody. I just feel like the communism, socialism always seems like everybody ends up equally with nothing. And I'd rather it be like, well, why doesn't everybody end up with everything? That would be a better alternative.
Maybe that's why we need the stories.
Yeah.
Because, for example, I watched when I had to deal with some kind of topics, so TED Talks I presented to my students, and there was a woman who was reporting three different um, stories of women, and one of them was, for example, in some African country, and so she was married with three daughters, and her husband was told by his mom to divorce her because she's going to only produce daughters, but they need, son. And so, for a woman in Africa, if she gets divorced with three kids, she's basically dying, right? Because there's nobody to take care of her. And so she actually, there was like a program where she could apply for, let's say, $500 to start a business, like really low money, right? And so she started, she bought a goat, you know, and that goat started producing, well, she had milk. And so she started making products from this goat's milk, and she started selling it. And then from that money, she bought another goat, and she started growing like this, and then from there, she started doing other products like, from, you know, I don't know quickly, but just making things like not jewelry, but something of that sort. I forgot what it is, right? And
Mhm.
so she hired other women because she couldn't do it all by herself. And so her daughters were helping her, and then she had money to send them to school and so on, right? So then her husband kind of joined in, and he was distributing it, you know?
Mhm.
So that's very interesting. Now, what would you say, right? Okay, so it's not a rich person. She does work hard, but how does that, happen that she has this brain to start this idea, going into this, loan, for example, right? No matter
Yeah.
how risky it is for her, obviously, and facing all these struggles, maybe, having stress over the family issues, right? She's a woman in Africa and she has no rights, and so um but then, you would have somebody in this capitalism who is, let's say, hurt by the whole this, structure of the society, lying down in bed, all depressed on antidepressants, not doing anything.
Yeah.
So that's a person, right? It doesn't matter what kind of system you are in, or what kind of country you're in.
Right.
So for me, that's something very interesting to think about. Like, how does that happen to a person? Is it like intervention of some higher power, or, you know,
Are you saying how they get the idea to
yeah, like
make that
it's,
business or?
mm, you know, it's this opportunity cost, not a cost, but like a bit, yeah.
Well, I think there's probably 100 different layers to it, but one of them could be sometimes when you're at your lowest point, like Araya told me one time in one of my channeling sessions, um, they were talking about, like, laying in the river basically and allowing you to go wherever you're supposed to go, and how people who try to stream upriver often end up drowning. But they said when you start to drown is sometimes when you find us at the same time, talking about the
Hmm.
angels.
Hmm.
So it could be some of that, when you're at your lowest point, that's when you're open to receiving those messages, or you kind of are asking those questions or whatever it is. And so maybe you're getting that guidance at that point. It could be that. It could be tapping into that stream of unconsciousness, where there's all these ideas, I believe, just hanging out, and people can tap into them at any time. Um, I think there's probably some of that too, and then, they always say necessity is the mother of all invention. So, when you get to your lowest point and you have to come up with something to survive, ingenuity strikes, and, who knows why, or, it could be any of those other factors, but maybe it's just the human, construction. Maybe once we're at our lowest point, that's when our brain kicks into the survival mode and gives us our best ideas. Who knows? I don't know the full, I'm sure it could be any of those things or a combination of those things. And I think the opposite, person too, is when you have no contribution to the world and you have everything already. What else is there to do but complain and try to, and I think that's where so many of these, socialist kids and the Antifas of the world and all these other they have it so easy that they don't have anything better to do. They're complaining on their $1,000 iPhones while they're drinking their $5, cup of coffee, and complaining
Mhm.
about how bad capitalism is and failing to see the irony. Um,
So
and
funny.
that's the thing too that is hilarious to me, is that these kids don't realize that they live in a free country. They can go start their own commune. They can go be communist on their own. They don't have to have the government to intervene and do it. They can go do it on, they can pay more taxes anytime they're ready. They can do all of the things that but it's not about that. It's about them getting more from somebody else. And they kind of hide under this guise of they're these freedom fighters or something, even though they don't even understand what freedom is to any degree. But kind of digressing anyway. But yeah, I think
No, that's all great, and that's what it is. Like, is the capitalism great? Because maybe, if it could be what happened to me, where I was provided as a lot of other children, and then you just grow up kind of not being able to handle struggles.
well, my sister made a quote one time, and I think it's I hate to use the word, but she said victim of the middle class. And I thought it was just a very interesting way to put it, because it is true in the way I saw the world. I grew up in a nice family and we were middle class for sure. And the assumption was that when I turned 18, I would be just as successful as my parents, and go out on my own and have a nice house and all this money and this and that. And it was not like that at all. I struggled, and I still struggle, and and part of it's the times that we live into. Money doesn't go as far as it used to, all those things. But um you know just that assumption that everything's going to just continue on this smooth sailing course, and then once you're on your own, and it's like, well, that was their money, not my money. I'm not comfortable,
Exactly.
they were comfortable. And
Mhm.
then coming to those realizations, and you're like, oh, I gotta get my life together. And so it is kind of that, you don't. And then there's the person who grew up struggling their whole life. They understand it, and they were probably more prepared for it than a lot of people were. So
And then
it's
there's somebody like Trump who started from nothing, but their nothing was the investment that they had from their father,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But he built it 300 multiple times, right? And it was the momentum that he got from, doing it, seeing it, growing up in it, and then he continued, and it grew, and it bloomed, and he was just having so much joy, just buying another one, and investing in it, and it was going well. So it's also very interesting how, when if he would be, that's how somebody explained it, how this consciousness works, that if you how to say it, are afraid that, oh, you are building so much and you have so much, what if it's going to be taken from you, or what if something is going to happen to it, then it will, right? But he never thought about it. He was just like having fun with it, playing, and so he was growing even more and more.
yeah. Well, and I always think that's an interesting, this is something I've caught on to lately. People always say, well, what if this happens, or what if that happens? Nobody ever says, what if it goes great? What if
Yeah.
I do awesome? What if I kill it? What if I crush it? Like, why
And the
don't
thing
we ever
is,
think like that?
human nature, I think.
But imagine how much better. And I know that there's that level of, we don't want to step into arrogance where, but we always say, what if it goes bad? Well, what if it goes good? Like, what then? Why don't we think that way? Why don't we think
So
in that stream of domino falling? If we think of what goes bad and then how all those things,
mhm.
react to it. But what if it goes good? Where do we go from there?
I guess it happened, to a lot of people. So they were like cautious, and they were um, breeding their children with this ideology that, be careful because you may lose everything or something, right? But for example, for him, it was for Trump, right? So he wasn't greedy or arrogant, but a lot of people can see that way because that's how they were, maybe, let's call it programmed, right? And he wasn't. He was just really, that was the joy, the frequency of joy in it, right?
Mhm.
And having fun with it. So it's like, a kid would play Monopoly, And then somebody, for example, my kids, when they played, my younger one, he wasn't as skilled in it, so he was kind of like not having the properties and he couldn't buy and so on, and my older one was always tricking him. But I could see the kind of frequency, right? He was like enjoying how the other one is losing, so that was really wrong, right? And
Yeah.
it was really disappointing to see that in my own son, but I understand, and I was like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
you know I know that he's not, hopefully, well, hopefully, I don't know, um but if it's like, but this is how it's going for me and I'm having fun, this is a game for me, and sorry guys that you're losing, but it's like I'm getting more money and I can purchase more and I'm doing it. What's so wrong in it, right? So the other can start attacking, the players, for example, start attacking, like, oh, you are so arrogant, or you don't let us have it, and so on, right? Well, so it's
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and jealousy is a,
Oh,
inky cologne. People are very often jealous, and I think if you boil down a lot of it with this whole the tax the 1%, it's all jealousy to a big degree. And I mean, to me, I don't have a problem with people having that wealth disparity. I think that, I mean, if it comes in, you know, unrighteous means or whatever, but I don't think that there is. I think there are some companies who exploit certain things and get wealthy off of it. And I think that there is other things that you come up with a good idea that doesn't have a lot of output cost. You're going to make a ton of money off of it because that's just how the nature of the business is, especially technology and things where there isn't a lot of, so you don't have to build and spend a lot of money to create something. It's already there and it's creating money, 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 advertising, all these different things, all these different revenues. Everybody's using your product and then people are mad at you for it. And it's like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like Amazon. I mean, I'm sure that there's some things that Amazon does wrong, but to me, they're an amazing company. And a lot of people don't realize that a lot of mom and pop shops sell on Amazon, and that's where they've went to and sell. Now they sell online. And so they're saying they're putting mom and pop shops out of business. They're not, they're selling their products online too. So it's like, I don't know. I think that people have gotten caught up in this. They think that the answer is to tax the billionaires and the trillionaires or whoever they are, and that's going to solve everything. And that's exactly what the people in charge want people to believe, because that just perpetuates their system, the tax farm. And let me ask all the people who are watching this, why do we need to pay taxes if they can print money? I don't understand. If they can just print money, why don't they just print the tax money that they need and we don't have to pay taxes? Nobody's asking that question.
uh, no, and I want to ask you, how is it called? Universal, sorry. They were talking about like $1,000 they would give to everybody equally. How is it called? The
Oh,
universal
universal basic income.
basic income. What do you think about that?
I I mean, as much as, like I said, I don't know. I'm so torn in between like worlds right now that I see both sides where
Well, we are talking about duality, so yeah, you can.
yeah, where it's hard because like I said, there's, in theory, right? You pay somebody money, then they take care of their basic needs are taken care of, then there's no reason for them to go commit crime. That's, I believe, the basic, if all of your needs are met, then you don't need to commit crime, right? That's, a lot of crime is committed. Now I get that there's crimes of passion and certain, but robberies, certain, a lot of things that are created by
So
being
what's
in
the
poverty.
idea? The idea is that we're going to give people money so then their basic needs are met.
Yeah, they can pay their rent and buy groceries and whatever, I guess, is the basic idea, which,
And so it ties back, not that ties back, but forward to, okay, if you are happy, content,
then
then you're not
hopefully,
gonna commit crime, you're not
well,
gonna
some
struggle
crime.
with mental health, you're not gonna.
I mean, that's, I would imagine that's the way that they're thinking. And I can see that. I can see, I do see that a lot of crime is probably, there's crimes of passion, people cheat on each other, that sort of thing, all that stuff too. But um robberies and theft, a lot of that stuff is because, it's the have nots trying to get from the haves. And if everybody has, then there's no have nots. So I kind of see, the thinking, the logic behind that. But I also see, you know, just exactly what's happened when they've given people money now. They go buy everything that is nothing to do with their survival, and then they don't have any money for their survival, but they have new shoes or rims or stereos or whatever it is. So that's it's the
Because that's the
whole,
craving.
well, yeah, and it's the understanding human nature versus living in a, utopia of what you think people are going to do with their money. So that's where everything falls apart. Is, in theory, all these things sound good, but then in practice, when you put human nature into it, that's where everything falls apart, because there are pieces of shit. There
Right.
always
So
are going to be.
have you heard, I'm not sure what's the name of this. It was Rat's Heaven.
Is it Rats Heaven?
Um experiment. It's like the,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know that one, right?
Yeah,
And that's what it, I think, is about this universal basic income as well. It
yeah.
was proven it's not going to work.
Yeah, well, and that's where I struggle, because I do think, in this my utopian mind, as best I can come up with, I think there is a system eventually that we get to, if people are enlightened enough and are aware enough. I think that we can all live in this, type of way that people envision. I think that it is possible, but it takes, it takes a lot of individual responsibility, and it takes freedom. And those two things are, going away very quickly these days. Um, so I think it's possible in the future. I think with, the rise in automation, and the robots are going to be taking over here pretty quickly. I mean, you already see fast food is quickly being, they got robots that can flip burgers now, so that you're going to take away a ton of jobs from a lot of people. So when those people don't have a way to feed themselves, what do you do? What's the solution? So I get the idea of the UBI. Like, I understand, that there's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to have any way. And here's the other side of that too. They have no skill. So it's unskilled people, there's going to have to be people that fix the robots, at least until they figure out how to fix themselves. So, but that's skilled labor, right? So it's the unskilled world that thinks that they're worth more than they are, that's the issue. And then those are the people that are going to be out of work and hungry and not being able to feed their kids. And so something's going to have to quell that, portion of the population. So yeah, I don't know. Me as an American, and someone who believes in the Constitution and freedom and all those things, I don't think that anybody should be handing out to anybody else, and unless it's voluntary. If you want to voluntarily take care of somebody, that's your choice, do whatever you want. But I don't think that there should be any governmental organization doing those things. I'm totally not cool with that. I think that
So
freedom
then
is the
from the
answer.
business perspective, they are saying that it's going to save a lot of money.
Who is saying what?
Um, what's this politician? I'm
Yeah,
not
then I
sure.
don't believe it. You need to know his name.
So
Or
Ortiz,
she.
but she has like this South American name. I don't know. She's like a
Don't believe him. They're all
lawyer.
corrupt.
Anyway, so I was talking to one of the men. He is like a business guy, and he followed her because like he was praising her for her ideas and so on. And she's really smart for sure. And she's really young politician and so on. But if there is like you she's for this implementation of the UBI, is it? And I was arguing with him just like you are, explaining now. And he said, but from the perspective of the budget and the business, it's going to save a lot of money to the government. I forgot how it is. Like it was maybe 2-3 years ago we talked, but I was like,
Yeah, that's
it's not that.
definitely one
It's
of those new econ people that don't understand economics at all. Just like the Build Back Better plan was supposed to not cost
No,
any
but
money, but
that's
it
how
was
it was like
trillions of
by
dollars.
research, and that's how they talked about in the American government about it, right? How it's going to
So
save them money.
that's a nice thing we can talk about real quick. Research, right? Who funds the research?
Oh, yeah. I'm totally not so aware of exactly the numbers, and like I don't remember even the name of this politician, but you know which one it is?
No, I'm just saying who funds the research? The
Um,
government. So the government gets answers that it wants because it doesn't fund people that doesn't give them answers that they want. So if it's a government funded research program, that means that those scientists are going to give them the research answers that they're looking for. Otherwise, the government isn't going to fund their research. Does you
yeah.
understand what I'm
No, no,
saying?
no, for sure. I'm not sure who is doing it
So the
or if
government is
it's,
always going to find research that's scientist backed up that is going to
it
forward
doesn't
their
have to
agenda.
be the government. It doesn't have to be, because it's actually these billionaires fighting against, being taxed, because, they're being attacked. So they are saying, just give them the, let's say $1,000, $2,000 a month, and, don't touch us and just blah, blah, blah. So it could
But
be
where is that money going
actually
to come from? That's
research done by them.
and here's what people got to understand too. These billionaires, there may be some good guys, there may be some bad guys, but they all hang out at the same parties. They all go to the same places. They all interact with each other. To think that they are against each other is no, I don't buy that for a second. I think it's all an illusion. And these billionaires that they talk about this or that this is all they're framing a scenario for everybody to see that they want out there.
Of course, of course.
And I don't think that just the face value of all these things, and what I think, this is just my personal opinion based off things that I've, heard channeled and other things, like Elon Musk is like the people's guy, right? He's the people's billionaire that he's fighting back against, the government and saying, all these different, and everybody's championing him right now. He wants the Neuralink. That's what he's trying to push. So if he looks like he's for the people and all these things, he's trying to push that Neuralink that's going to connect everybody to the internet and turn everybody into drones. So the darkness, however you want to look at them, has many different angles that they can come from. And so thinking that there's this, champion of the light over here because he's fighting against the government overreach in this way, it's just a subversion to get you to think the other way too. So we have to just be aware of all these different angles.
It's so transparent for some people, like
And
it's
going
very.
back to what we were talking about earlier, not to cut you off, but
Mhm.
when somebody illuminates a problem and then this person has a solution that just so happens to make them a little extra money, it's a little bit weird, right? And that's
Wait,
all the government is this person who's friends with this person comes up with the problem over here, and then this guy's like, I have the solution, and then weird, they have a contract together and this person also gets a kickback from it, and it's
it's very interesting, and it's so much more seen in other countries, like who not so much West, but let's say it happened in a lot of European countries, where all of a sudden the politicians weren't ruling the country, but it was the businessmen who became, first of all, the ministers of finance, and then they became prime ministers or even presidents, right?
Mhm.
So they had nothing to do with politics, but they were pure business people. And the,
Have you heard of the Federal Reserve?
no,
The Federal Reserve is where America gets all of its money from. That's where it prints all of our money. And you would think that that is owned by the government, right? Federal Reserve sounds very governmental. It's
um,
in private business. It's a private bank that controls all of our money. People don't even know
I think everything is private, actually.
that. Well, and that's the game, right? And that's what people don't understand. When you have CNN, your private company, so they can do whatever they want because they're a private company, but who are all the employees there? They're all governmental employees. They're CIA agents. There are all these other people that are planted in there to do this work, but it's a private company. So you see how they use that to do whatever they want, but now they're just forcing propaganda down your throat and you don't even know the difference. It's a good game that they figured out.
It is absolutely. So It's very screwed up anyway. But I think this universal UBI, right? It can work in, but we have to get through it. It's like we have to get this work done in order for it to become reality, which is the 5D, right? Or six or so.
Yeah, and that's why I say I think for you and I, universal basic income could work. But then you have the other outlier who is going to use it for the wrong reasons and still be
Mhm.
that, nuisance to society or whatever. And so I think that's the problem is, for every person that it's going to be beneficial and do what you're expecting it to do, there's one or two people that's going to do the opposite. And, it's just human nature. It's duality in itself right there, right?
Yeah,
So,
and that's the work we have to get done. Because very interestingly, I was watching this video. The woman was also born through the Lionsgate portal, and so she was saying that she has these, I don't know, gifts, abilities, where she can go to other planetary systems. So let's say she visited Sirius and how it works in Sirius. She said they have cities just like us, right? And for example, they would have the society developed this way where nobody, how does it work? Nobody really has like earnings, they don't have money, but everybody's doing, they contribute. So there could be like on a board, and there are different job positions for different times, let's say 2 months, week, or a year or something, right? Like she had to put it in our perspective, but the time is not just like ours,
right.
right?
But more or
So the
less
different,
like a contracted job. It's
yeah,
not
exactly. And so she
indefinite.
said, like, say you say, you know what, I do feel like working in a construction for a little bit, I can help building something, right? And I would say, yeah, and I can go and clean up something, right? So we end up being in the same job, and we don't get money, but we just have this contribution feeling of like contributing to the whole society, and it works. And it's always, you switch, then you go and you end up working in a restaurant, then you go and teach, then you go and, let's say, participate in some kind of community, decisions making and something. And it's not like you are feeling, oh, this, and you become identity, you know
Yeah.
and you work um always in some other area, whatever your gifts, what your skills are, where you can see yourself, contributing. And
Yeah.
so it doesn't matter how long, and you never struggle. And having like, oh, depressed because I don't have job, or I have tons of work and I can't even manage that, or so. And you know then she was saying that there are all kinds of beings that they don't look just one way, they look all kinds of ways, and they have the same, little, short, stout, this tall, lanky, or whatever, right? And they don't really see that, they don't really look at like, oh, how your appearance, right? And
Mm.
they don't really struggle with things like we do. And food, it's like, um you know it's everybody has different needs, and nobody's looking, oh, you eat this much, and oh, or something, and they eat all together. And it doesn't matter, everybody's family, like, oh no, I want to sit with those people, and just like, yeah, give me that space. Everybody gets together, and they would have communal, like eating. If you feel like, you go and then you just take the food, you sit down, you eat, and then you continue somewhere else, whether you want to work, or you want to study, or you want to rest, or you want to recreate yourself, and so on. And nobody's looking at anybody, oh, you don't work, you've been just enjoying yourself, having some kind of vacation on the beach for too long, you got to go back to work. They don't have these kind of concepts, because this is it, right? You just naturally feel like it's time to work, it's time to rest, it's time to eat, it's time to enjoy yourself. So she was also talking about how the society works, like they would have comedians, and you just feel like, I feel like being entertained, so you go and you attend this theater, or you attend this, I don't know, concert, and so on, right? And it's not like you have to pay and so on, but it's just like, because we all contribute, it's all for us, and it's like the socialism, right?
Yeah.
Can it work here? No, because it's
Well,
not constructed like this way. And it's
right.
the higher consciousness of those beings, where there's no time to think of like discrimination, and so on.
Well, I don't even know if higher, excuse me, higher consciousness is the correct term. I think, because we're all that higher consciousness, it's just a matter of the veil that makes us forget everything here. Um, but as you're saying those things, it's just like occurring to me that we have to have a lot of those things because of just all of those different things that you said, or all of those different lessons that couldn't be learned there. All of the different things of what it's like to struggle, of what it's like to have to work more than you want to, of what it's like to have to work less than you want to, all those different
Have to get
feelings. And
there. Yeah.
yeah, they're not experiencing those things, and they're not getting those valuable, tangible lessons that are taught, that source is looking for.
They have
And
different.
right, it's different, that's what I'm saying. But I think ours here on earth is the most, from everything that I've read or heard channelers say, this is the most intense
Yeah.
school there is in the universe.
And
And
so
a lot of
they
people shy away
probably
from
had
coming here
this.
because of that. Hmm.
They probably had this.
Right, and that's what I mean. And so I think that, I think it's possible, but I also think that, yeah, like I mean, I feel like I see it in the future.
Mm,
Like that's where we're heading towards eventually, but it's going to take such a huge shift in consciousness, and a huge, because here's the things that I struggle with, because I do stuff that I enjoy for free all the time. I'll play a concert for free. I'll do anything. I coached football and traveled all over and paid my money to go do it because I enjoyed doing it. But who is going to clean the sewers? Who's going to clean out the septic tanks and change the porta johns? I just don't see those being jobs that people are like, I love going to work every day because clean and poo is my favorite thing to do. Like, I don't know that maybe there are, I don't know. But so there's certain jobs that are just, they have to be done, but nobody really wants to do them unless they're incentivized. And that's where I see the issue being with certain, the universal basic income, or just where everything is free and you just have to show up to work or whatever. Like, I don't know, like I see, possibilities, but then I see those questions where there's just jobs that just really suck, and but they have to be done for society to function. And maybe it's something that I just can't see the future of. Maybe there's a future where we don't need that sort of plumbing, or that it's better, it cleans itself, or I don't know,
okay,
so
sure.
maybe I'm not thinking in the correct, fashion, but to me, I just see it as there's certain things that have to be done that people don't enjoy to do. So you have to incentivize those jobs to make people
Well,
want to do them.
because if that's your prospect for another 10 years, right? It's like, oh, damn, right?
Yeah.
But if you know that, okay, I do this, but then next day I can get to sit in some nice office and chat with my, I don't know, buddies, and I don't know what else, right? So I think it's that, dread of having this kind of job for this long, and you just don't want to even start, right?
Well, and I think that there's so many different factors. Like, I mean, even jobs that I've enjoyed, there's days where it's just like it's snowing out or it's
Yeah,
raining and it's
yeah.
miserable, and you're just like, I just don't want to do this. You just want to stay home in
Mhm.
bed, or where it's
So
not even, it could be the best job in the world, but it's just, I just don't feel it
you
today. I
just
just
don't.
don't want to do it.
And the same goes for, let's say, you can be sick, but it's also for women, right? It's about like, um, sorry to put, sorry, I have to plug in my computer. Where is
No,
it?
no, no.
Um, you know, hormonal changes,
Yeah.
right? And that's something that you really struggle as a woman, to be honest. And okay, I'm back on. It can be after childbirth. It takes time to kind of get yourself back together,
Yeah.
having this baby and so on. And it's really not something that you can take care of when it comes to like feeding, if you want to be the kind of mother I was. Right.
Yeah.
So then she was talking about that as well, where, for example, you put the child in a kindergarten. The nursery is pretty tough because it should be really the mother, because it's the strings attached, right? The baby really suffers the abandonment and so on, right? The birth trauma and so on. It's very interesting how I see people doing completion program. Do you know what it is? Like going through the emotional healing where they actually don't know what happened and they just like shake, and they have these seizures and so on. It's because they had really difficult birth. Going back all the way there, where they actually didn't want to be born. That's another funny stuff, that they were kind of pushed, to come back to this 3D human life. They didn't want to. So they didn't want to be born. And then it was such a stress, and what can it be as well, like, so they just didn't, they were pushing back, not to be born.
Well, one thing that it just occurred to me when you were saying that is how I was saying I was born like a month late. I wonder if with so many doctors nowadays wanting to induce mothers to have them, so they're going to be on their schedule, that, that is part of that right there, where maybe it's not so much they don't want to be born, but they were trying to hit a certain day, because of,
Yeah.
and now they're being pushed into some other day that they weren't planning to incarnate on or something. I don't know. I'd be curious.
Oh yeah, I can tell you. So for example, my second son was sitting in a Buddha position. So his legs and his hands were like this, and he wasn't head down. So nobody here would dare to have like a natural birth. So obviously I had C-section, and so he wasn't ready, and it was scheduled this day because the doctor was there in a hospital that day. And so my little one was always very clingy, and especially he had to touch the tummy. And then it was first me, then it was his dad, and then it was everybody else, even his grandmother. He was just always like hugging and touching the tummy, until he was maybe 7, 8, Yeah. And so I said, naturally, I explained to everybody, you have to allow him that. I know it's not pleasant, sometimes it can be like, just, and especially when he was older, but he needed it. He wasn't ready. And I knew that. It's just something you can't explain,
Yeah.
And so, that's why it's like some people are just better parents and some are not. Because you can't help it. It's such innate feeling that only mothers can have a lot of times for their kids.
Well, and that's an interesting, sorry, but I just thought of it because the interpretation, I think, of what is a good mother, a good parent, or good father is also because I think
attunement.
sometimes
It's attunement.
the what?
Attunement.
Yeah. I was just more because it's like, I think sometimes there's a lot of good mothers out there that are doing a bang up job on their kids and they don't realize it. And so I think that that's kind of like an interesting, and I know more what you're getting at is more that you're like in tune with being a parent and what your kids needs. And I think that's more where you're getting at. But I do think that there's that, like, what is a good parent? Because as a good parent, the parent who picks up their kid every time they skins their knee and then they don't know how to take care of themselves, so it's like, where's, that fine line of.
Exactly. And I wasn't a good mother, maybe in a way where I wasn't able to financially provide for them, all that comfort that maybe other kids would have, right?
And see, that's another thing that I think
it's another thing,
sometimes,
exactly.
because it's like, but how many better lessons, I shouldn't say better, how many different lessons did your kids learn? And are they going to be, maybe more appreciative of things when they get them because they saw the struggle that it takes to get certain things? It's not just handed to them. Here's this. Oh, you broke that. Here's another one. Oh, here's this, because it takes, it's a struggle to get and earn and have certain things. And I think that different perspective, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, it's still, I don't think it's worse or better. I think it's just different. You had a different perspective for them than, and to me personally, I don't, just looking at the, generalities of people, the people who grew up with everything generally are not in the same headspace that I'm at,
so it's very interesting. And it's the attunement, I think, again, it's the duality where, it would be very unfair and you would be the worst parent ever if you have, let's say 2, 3 kids, and for each differently. When and I see that in my kids. So the provision. So my younger one, he has that momentum. He asks for things, but those things can be get for him easily. Like some things would be maybe more expensive. This video game is a video game, I would say, like the Mario Party or something. It's like $100.
Yeah.
Jesus, it's not that easy. If you have like 3 different games that are like every month, there's different game that is being, released, and it's like it's $100 thing,
Yeah.
and it's a game. I mean, it's incredible, and I do understand that people are working hard on putting, all that graphics and all that, voice, and but it's not that cheap, and I wish that it doesn't cost as much. But then my older son, he would be like, oh well, it's not like he would say, oh, he gets everything and I don't. But then he would ask for nothing, 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 and all of a sudden he wants shoes that are like $200 because they're Jordans or something, right? And I'm like, well, it's the balance between like distribution of my money into each of them, right? But they want it for different things. But then the $200 um sneakers, for example, it's vanity, because he doesn't want to feel like, oh, he cannot afford it, and it's like the brand and all that, right?
Hmm.
While my younger son, he doesn't really think about, oh, it's $100 game, I shouldn't request, another thing because my mom already spent so much money. But it's joy for him, right? It's just game, like he's enjoying it. He's not like bragging about like, oh, I have this game. So the same was when I was growing up with Barbie dolls. I there were all kinds of brands of these Barbie dolls, and we played, and there was this jealousy, like, oh, you have the better brand.
Hmm.
And it was so much more money for sure, but for me it was a Barbie doll. I didn't really care which one I was playing with. And so that's the attunement.
Yeah.
When I know that if I get this jewelry, if I get this sneakers, if I get this jacket and it's brand because you want to brag, and especially teenagers want this, right? Or jeans or something. That's wrong. Doesn't
Hmm.
matter how much it costs, 50 or 500.
Right.
But if it's an expensive thing, but you don't really care what it is, what kind of brand, it's just for your joy. Like you just enjoy, having this kind of bike
Yeah.
or having this kind of guitar because it's just like such a cool sound.
Hmm.
So for me, that's what has to be explained.
Yeah,
That's
that's
the
a
maybe
great
better
point. I
parenting.
definitely, yeah, I agree with that 100%, because I think yeah, the whole thing that kids have been sold with these shoes and clothes and having to wear certain things and not even realizing that half of the stuff is the it cracks me up. Like, you go to Cole, or not, I don't know what stores you guys have there, but I think there's like a Ross. It's all the same exact stuff and they sell it for half the
Dress
price.
for less or something, Ross dress
Yeah,
for
right,
less.
right, right. And it's all the same stuff and people think that it's different, and they're just making the same things. They make two products, they send one to this store and sell it for 500, make it and sell it to this store for 20, and it's like it's just the dummies who go to this more expensive store and pay the more money, like, because they want to have that, and that's it. They won't even wear the brand because it came from this store, even though it's the same exact brand made the same way, all these things, but because it came from this store and only cost $20, you can't wear it, but you can pay 500 for it and wear it. And so yeah, we've been, as a society as a whole, been duped into this ridiculous concept of these brands. And how, I mean, I get if there's truly something remarkable about it that like, other than the fact that you're, like you said, it gives you joy because it feels good the way it is on your skin. I understand that, there's certain boots or something that are, just made way better, and so they cost more. Like, I understand those things. But like you said, if you're just doing it to say, hey, look, I got these, Jordans or whatever, like, that's one of the ones that just blows my mind, because for one, I think those shoes are hideous. I don't know why anybody likes them anyway. And that's just my personal opinion on them. But I just look at people and I'm like, you paid how much for those shoes? I think they are ugly. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
everybody's entitled to their own opinion about stuff. But to me, it's just like, man, I could have found something a lot cheaper that look way better to me. So, I don't know.
And
But I think it's more about, like what you said, it's that status thing where people think that, oh, I have Jordans, so now I'm part of the cool kid crowd or
yeah.
whatever. And it's like, who cares? Like, and that's one thing that is just such a product of limited foresight and kids not being able to see, I mean, how many people do you talk to from grade school, that are still important in your lives? And maybe one person for me. And, that's not as, where I live completely across the country from that person. We still keep in touch, but it's like, how many of those people that you're trying to impress are ever going to be significant in your life past that, elementary school or high school or whatever. But kids, really can't see that far ahead a lot of times.
and they don't have to. that's I think they mind of the parent where they should see that, right?
Right.
Like getting to know. So you get a product or you get a child and it's like, who are you? You should be very curious and then find out, this is your child, this is your child, this is also your child. And it's like,
Mhm.
damn, they are all from the same parents, for example, and they're so different. Like, how
Right.
did you get to me? Right. So that's exactly the soul contracts. They need it and you need it. And so
Mhm.
the better parenting lies in attunement. It's like, oh, I see this and I can see beyond, right?
Yeah.
So I have to treat you differently. And this is why it is,
Yeah.
right? The child is not going to see that, but it's not like I'm harming you. But if, let's say, this woman also continued talking about like how the kids are raised in Sirius, for example, and it's somewhere else as well, obviously, where for example, this society works so bad about certain other people are praised more, and then it's such a hard work to work with children in kindergarten where the parents not even know their kids their entire lives. There's this emotional neglect, when it's coming up so much these days, especially, right? And then how do you expect that teacher to be attuned to so many other kids because they have like 20, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, did you realize I'm being parent to your child while you are at work, you
Yeah.
know, and they are paid like $15, $20 an hour, which is almost nothing. It's really low, wage, and they have to work emotionally, mentally, physically with these kids. Like I was tired going through, the first 5 years, let's say, with my kids because they're so full of energy and so on and so on, right? And anyway, it's very twisted, and we all know that. So it's finally going to be, I hope so, valued differently, because if you go to work, and a lot of fathers were like, oh, I can't wait for this, Christmas to be over so I can go back to work, like
Mhm.
away from them, but you stay 24/7, just like you asked me to be with your kid, and there I'm not getting even paid for it. So very interestingly, I was talking to yesterday, and we were saying that, mother actually said to the father, like the parents, like, you are gonna pay me, so I'm gonna stay with the kids, but this is my job, so you go to work and then you pay me, and see how it is really. Because a lot of fathers were like, you are sitting at home doing nothing. This was really truth for them, right? And it's not like that. So um you know what is it that we thought of, what is parenting? It's
Well,
becoming
I
like
would ask this
more.
though too, because I can see both sides of this. Now, I can see a dad
I
sitting
know.
at home all day with a kid and doing nothing, but yet that kid's taken care of. And I can see a mom sitting at home all day with a kid and doing everything. So, what is the reason? Is it because the mom does everything that the kid asked them to do? And that's why it's hard for them? Because one thing I see, and this is just purely objectional or objective, kid cries and says, I need something. Mom does it. Kid cries and says, I need something. Dad says, go do it. So is it because you put yourself in that position that you obey all the commands of your child, and that's why it's such a rough day?
Exactly.
And that's where I think that people aren't seeing eye to eye on it. It's not that dad isn't doing anything necessarily, but
He's
if
doing it
you say I
differently.
need a drink of water, I'm going to tell you to go get a drink of water. I'm not going to get up and get it for you. So my day didn't change at all. And I
Hmm.
think that's where the distinction lies, is those two things could be absolutely true in both scenarios, where a dad could stay home all day and not have to work and lift a finger to do all the things that the kid needs to do, and the mother can, I mean, the
No,
roles could be
absolutely.
reversed. It's just a matter of, do they
It's
understand that they're
because it
being a
was.
slave to their child,
Yes.
or so it's one of those things too, I believe. And there's a certain age where obviously those things are, once when they're a baby and they can't do anything for themselves, you can't tell them to make
That's
a
different.
sandwich. So
It doesn't matter who, but you need to go get the water for them,
right.
right? If it's even a neighbor, it doesn't matter. But that's what I think, what it is. We had to work through it where
Mhm.
women were, I don't know, exploited this way, and they let themselves because it
Mhm.
was the kind of like consciousness again. I would blame it on that.
Well, and I think
And
it's that nurturing nature that you guys have too, and a lot of,
but
you think you're
you
helping,
do
and
too.
huh?
You do too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for
Like that.
sure. And that's where I can argue with a lot of like, it doesn't matter. It's just what we created,
Yeah.
masculinity, femininity. Oh, I'm
Oh
more
yeah.
feminine. Really? No, like, where is it? It's only on planet Earth. Nowhere else in the universe there is masculine, feminine, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, the way
if I
we've
can
viewed
do
it
it, I'm
anyway.
pretty sure you can do it. I'm just as human as you are. So that's what we had to go through with these centuries of like programming or whatever, conditioning. And so that's why I said it's the parenting,
Yeah.
because we had really strange, I wouldn't say even like fucked up, I would say strange concept of parenting.
Yeah.
I agree so much with you. And so now that's where it also became very twisted, where parents were a certain way. And then if the teacher wasn't, or the kindergarten caregiver, whatever we can call them, right? You didn't give my kid water, it had to go and get it by itself,
Right. Yeah.
so yeah.
And that's one thing that's interesting too, just through school, or like when I was in the military, or anything where you're kind of interacting with a bunch of different socioeconomic backgrounds, racial backgrounds, ethnic background, everything, where they're all kind of mixed together. You really come to the realization quickly that we're all not raised the same, we don't all have the same values. And then when you get to those settings like
Expectations.
that, and you're expected to adhere to this one type of standard where, like exactly what you said, this kid's never gotten a glass of water in his life for himself, he doesn't even know how to do it, and you're telling him to go get it. So it's, yeah, it's interesting how, and that's part of the problem, I think, too, with these cookie cutter educational societies that we've tried to create. And I just feel like there's so many different variables, and I don't know, I think school as we know it needs to be, if
Oh,
not just completely demolished and start over, it needs to be overhauled significantly.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and it's very interesting how it's going from, it was very normal to put us into school. Parents went to work, then we met at home, and the next day again. And you went through your entire life not even questioning that, maybe, right?
Yeah.
And maybe you were okay, and your sibling was like totally struggling, going to school, because it's just, and it was felt, but nobody really cared, nobody really thought about it twice, is it okay for one kid? And so then this homeschooling, was like a huge, it's 11/11. This homeschooling what concepts like took over a lot, and especially during COVID. And I think we're going to go back to actually conscious parenting. So I was watching this program, and they were saying, our son is like really happy at school, and he's got really cool like teachers and all that. And some parents were like, our daughters are just so unhappy, and they really need to stay home, and they have like completely different schedules. So one starts a little later in the day, but she needs the morning, just like do nothing. And the other has different daily rhythm. How do they call it?
Your
Circadian
biorhythm.
rhythm or
Oh,
something,
circadian rhythm. Yeah.
right? And she needs to start really early, because like later in the afternoon she's like completely done, and her. So, and that's where we have to kind of balance this, where yeah, it doesn't mean that you have to start 8:30.
Yeah. And
My
that's
brain
one of
doesn't
those,
work, your brain works much better, and so right?
right. And that's one of those things I always wonder, we've talked about it plenty of times before with the conspiracy theories and stuff. Like, I always wonder with those things, was that an intentional thing where they knew,
No,
that,
I think
or is that just like
genuinely.
we learned those things over the years and started to figure out that not everybody is the same, or, because
So
I
in China, it has to be uniformed, because they can, that's what they say. They cannot control, they cannot give free way to 1.3 or 4 billion people.
yeah,
Right. So the same thing, I think it was just generally thought like, we're just gonna have it this way, and it's gonna work, So 9 to 5 jobs, kids at school, and then they're gonna meet at home, I don't know, after 5, after 6, have dinner, and the next day and next day, right? So it was like
yeah.
easy to keep control, easy to keep
Well,
going.
Yeah, and that's the other part is if you're at school or if you're at work all day, what are you going to do with your kids? You can't leave them at home by themselves unsupervised, so you have to send them somewhere, and
Yeah.
so it's very convenient on both ends, so it's and in theory, school is a great thing, to send your kids to be socialized and more enlightened, and like that in theory is a great thing, but then when it's turned into and these indoctrination camps and that like I was saying to I don't know, somebody the other day where I remember doing like class projects and doing these like off the wall things where we'd build stuff out of construction paper, or like I remember this one time we built this whole entire city in our classroom of old Williams, or was it Williamsburg, something, I don't know, in from the old like colony settlements, and everybody dressed up and they all had their part to play, and everybody like had to memorize this thing, and like it was really cool, it was fun. And now it's like, here's a worksheet, oh, go online and do this worksheet, and it's like that's what school is now. It's so all the creativity's been taken out of it, all of the teacher individualization, what made teachers great and interesting, and all of it's been taken away, and it's just this cookie cutter 9 to 5 job. You show up, you do this, everybody's exactly the same, you get
I think
graded the
that's the
same, tested the
burnout.
same. Oh yeah, burnout is a huge
Yeah.
part. I mean, have you ever looked, I don't know if it's still like this, it was a couple of years ago, if you went on Google and said, why does school, and how it pops up all the, and it's like, make me want to kill myself, make me hate the world, make me the, and it was just this huge list of obviously all these things that kids have Googled, and you just look at that from an objective standpoint, it's like, why, what are we doing to our kids, like why are we making them, and the other thing that always comes up, well, we had to do it, so they got to do it. It's like, is that really the the type of society that we want to, we were tortured, so we have to torture them too.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's like, well, shouldn't we
They're gonna
evolve?
torture next generation.
Right, shouldn't we evolve and want better for the future generations? And I don't know, I think that there's it confuses me. Where is it, like I said, where I think that we have right intentions a lot of times, but who's in control? Are those people steering the boat in the wrong direction, or is it just a product of
Ego.
society and the people who get in charge? Or, I always question how
I
deep
think
it
it's
goes.
ego because, to be honest, you are a professional in some area, and you could definitely be, they call it a guest speaker. But what if you teach? You know, no, the teacher would be like, hell no, I'm the teacher here.
Mhm.
But then, you know what? So in science class, my son in 2020, almost 22, Jesus Christ, he reads a chapter, then he answers the book's questions at the end of the chapter.
Mhm.
And I'm like, fuck you. I'm going to go and visit that teacher, but I'm going to have to be in a really compassionate and good mood.
Yeah, but you got to understand too that they're just doing what they're told also, and that's the whole problem that I've started to
Do you
notice in
think so?
society is, oh yeah, they're
I think that it depends on the teacher because I'm not sure how they are evaluated in our lab, but they are. And so I think it's also just, kind of,
well, this is what
it
I'm
could be
saying, regardless
conformity, but
if the
it's also
teacher,
laziness.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Laziness.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So regardless if they are forcing the teacher to do it or they're allowing him or her, either way, right? They're hiring and
So
employing that teacher at your school to hand out worksheets and just sit there and read a book and do nothing. So whether they're encouraging it or allowing it,
this many worksheets in like 2 weeks.
yeah, that's what school is now. It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And so, I believe that school should be like, if you are from that field and I'm a science teacher, I would definitely want, if it's not parents, some other people like come and talk about, I don't know, it's environmental topics. It's the most boring for me, and I'm pretty sure that it's for 99% of other people. you know
Well, but here's why they don't do that, because then they can't control the narrative. If you come in and start having all these different perspectives of parents and them saying what they truly believe or think or feel,
and
then
isn't
they
that
can't
what we
control the
should
narrative with
have?
that one book that has that one source of information that tells you that this is all the end all be all to everything. And then they don't have that control.
Sorry, you're saying they don't have the control.
Think about all of what you just said. Where are they getting all the information that they learned from? That one textbook,
Mhm.
right? So it's
So
all
is one.
controlled. In this one textbook is all the information that you need to know about everything. Now you start bringing in a parent who works in that field and they say climate change is ridiculous. This is how it really works. And then this person comes in and gives their opinion, and this person comes in and gives their opinion. Now this kid all of a sudden says, this textbook doesn't mean anything to me. Now I have all these sources of information that contradict what this is saying. Why do I need to believe this? So you see why they eliminate that and say, believe this. And now you have little drones that say whatever you want them to say.
Well, so I think certain kids are doing that because they are simply interested in this topic. Right. And whoever isn't, they're just gonna like, oh, let me just do the minimum, the bare minimum, what I have to, right? And I'll stick with the textbook, right? It could be so many topics for you. Let's say, what is like the least favorite topic for you?
Probably politics. I don't know. Or are you talking about in school?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't know.
Generally,
Probably.
like if it's a group of people and they start talking about it, you would be like, oh, I'm gone.
Yeah, I probably
Politics.
Well, politics, celebrities, anything.
It's okay. So gossips and
mainstream
celebrities,
gossip.
exactly, or fashion
Yeah.
or something, right?
Yeah.
And so, for sure, there are going to be people who are doing nothing but like digging on the internet all about it, right? Because
Right.
that's what like they want to be designer and so on, right?
Yeah.
They by the age of 17, 16, they know all the fabrics, they know all the colors, they know whatever, right? And that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, and that's where they say that the education system should go, to just tap into your excellence and just do that, right? Because you're
I've heard other
gonna,
countries do that too.
they do, but at the same time, is that gonna do well? Because you're just gonna completely eliminate maybe some other things like, yeah, economy and politics and environmental issues and so on. And shouldn't that be also something that you should know about, at least like to a degree where you can be, discerning and critical thinker? I think there should still be this, but it's like if you are being really forced, that's why they created this like in how do they call experiential learning, where it's still going to make it interesting for you to learn even though you're so not interested in it, right?
And I see both sides of it, because I think that we live in an over specialized society, and where people get so caught up in their nook of the world and they're completely blinded to everything else, but yet they still have an opinion. And but I also see the contrary, point to that being, are we learning how to think about those things, or are we being taught what to think about those things? And that would be the line of distinction for me, because sure, in a perfect world, what you're saying and getting that little bit of everything knowledge, which I think is great to have a little bit of knowledge everywhere, because first of all, you'll start to see the overlaps between music and math and science and spirituality and frequency, and how they all kind of, interact between each other. And have that broad perspective really helps in that sense. But the flip side of that being, if you're teaching kids what to think about, now climate change is this because they told you, and this is that because they told you, if it's that sort of, being more, if you're being propagandized at a wider level, I don't think that helps you at all. But
No.
I see what you're getting. Yeah, I definitely agree that over specialization is, I think, it
can be tricky.
Yeah, because I can see it being, if you need somebody for that specific job, you want somebody who's an expert. But also, if that person starts giving their, a basketball player starts giving their political opinion, I don't give it much weight, because I don't think that they have enough time or, effort,
it's just for their personal enrichment. Right. So for example, for me, this naivety, right, can be very like a huge problem if I just become an expert in some area and then I don't know how to function in other areas, right? So what am I going to have 3 different husbands, or wives, and doesn't matter that I'm a woman, I can have wives and husbands. And that's why these intentional communities are the best, where everybody specializes in something and I can rely on them because I know that they have my best interest. I have their best interest at heart. And so I am gonna, provide for them what they need, but they don't have to worry about something that they don't really maybe want to. And that's fair enough.
Yeah. Well, because I think that, and I've channeled about ADHD before and stuff, and that's essentially what ADHD is if you're interested in something, you're going to pay attention to it. If you're not interested in something, you're not going to pay attention to it. And that's just human nature. And we've turned it into this disease that takes pills to solve for whatever reason. money. But so I think that, like you said, we should definitely point people in the direction of their interests. And even to the degree of, you know, just because of me with freedom, I'm just such a freedom person. I don't want to force anybody to do anything they don't want to do. If you don't want to learn about something, don't learn about it. You want to be ignorant, by all means, be ignorant, because there's things that definitely don't interest me that I have no interest in learning. And, I don't want to be forced to learn about those things, but
Yes.
somebody else may see them as important, and I don't put them in that high of importance. So it's hard for me to, say one way or the other, but I do see the value in being, well-rounded and having more, perspective on the world and that sort of thing. I definitely see that being something that we should, aspire to be, but I don't think that we should be required to be
Well,
that way either.
so that's the interconnectedness in the codependency, because if I'm going to be put down, for things that I don't know and I'm not interested in, that's wrong. But if you're going to say, what, don't worry about it, like I have your back, that's the interdependent relationship. But if I come to this society where I have to be independent in all the areas and be able to take care of myself, then it's so much anxiety, so much pressure on me to be functioning, high functioning in all these areas, right?
Yeah.
It's very exhausting, and I don't even want to. So it's like, you're saying, ultimately we have to follow our joy.
Yeah.
That's what the best thing is. And I think we are, but then it's good to be superficially, involved in maybe all the areas just for the sake of it. But then if, yeah, like you're saying, if I'm a basketball player, I'm going to give some kind of political, opinion, and it has to be taken into consideration, then it's something wrong there, because it shouldn't be, right?
Well, and I think what the
You
problem
can
is,
have it for yourself and for your own enrichment,
right.
but that's where it ends.
Right. That's what I was going to say, is I think that there's no, I don't have a problem with anybody having their own opinion about stuff, and they may be very well read and may very well have a great opinion on it. I don't know. But I'm saying, to have the weight that they have to be able to tweet something or say something and have a million followers say, I agree with him because he's my favorite basketball player and nothing else, that is where the issue lies with me. If he has his own opinion, I don't care what it is. He can tweet about it, but the weight that it carries is the part that's, unfortunate, because so many people will agree with people just because they are a good sports player or whatever it is. And it's like, how do you know that they're researched or well read or not paid to say what they're saying? There's all of these different factors that people never take into consideration. Like, how do you know that somebody literally didn't hand them cash and say this when somebody asks you this question? You don't know what their morals are or their values or anything like that. So just to, always keep that in mind, that somebody may be being paid to say whatever they're saying, especially if they have a large enough audience. Or maybe they're brainwashed, or maybe they don't think for themselves, or maybe they just do whatever they're told. There's a million different factors that you have to think about, and not just taking into, they're a good basketball player, so I believe what they say. Like, that's ridiculous. And it's
No,
also
for sure.
ridiculous to say that they couldn't have a good opinion either. So, both ways can be true.
That's why, yeah, um you don't have to have an opinion, right? So for
Yeah.
example, if there is something, I can say, what, I genuinely, I don't know, and that's fine.
And more
But
people
people
need to
are so
do that.
scared to be judged for that. Sorry.
I said more people need to do that and just say, I don't know. And I don't ever try to presume that I knew. If I feel like I know something, I'll speak about it. And if I don't want to talk about it, because, I'll learn about it if you want to talk about it, and I'll try to take what I can and input whatever I know about the situation. But so many people want to talk about things that they have no idea about, or they learn this much about it and think they know all about it. And, there's, so many different layers to all these different situations, but it's like this
Well, and
overconfidence that
why
we've
do you
developed
think
as
it is?
humans. Why do I think what is?
Let's say that we they are always trying to have some opinions. For me,
Well,
it would be because I'm pushed always, like, you got to prove that you are smart enough. And I'm not, and I don't even I don't even feel that shame of like, you know what, I screwed up. Like I'm twisting, one idea over the other, and it doesn't even make sense because I just don't know. But I'm trying to think about it, and maybe I'm trying to bring it up, and then okay, correct me, and it's perfectly fine. And I would be like, you know what? Okay, that's where it ends. No, you know what? That was something I need to go and research about it. That's who I am, but everybody's
Well,
different.
yeah, I think there's so many layers to that too, but there's the, like I said, somebody learns, reads one sentence out of a book and thinks they understand the whole book and tries to go out there and regurgitate it and all these different things. So, there's that. And then there's, people who are more concerned with being right and being the one with the answers than if it's right, if it's the right answer, or, so I think there's, so many different ways you can look at it, but people have different, interests in why they want to know things, or, say that they know things or understand things. And some of it is because they want to look like the smartest person in the room. And some of it's because they truly put in the time and the effort to learn about this. And even that person can be blinded. Like I said, there's other, you know, just for example, when they say a climate change expert, like what even is that? Like, how could you possibly be an expert on that? And especially thinking about all of the different possible variables, like how asphalt absorbs heat and reflects it back towards the atmosphere, and how the CO2 and all these other different factors, that you'd have to be an expert in all of these variety of different fields that interact to create an environment, to say that you're some kind of expert. It's ridiculous. And so I think that there's one, the arrogance of human, that we think we know and have all the answers because we have science and we can prove certain things or observe certain other things or whatever it is. And with that same, in that same vein, well, we don't have a test for it, so therefore it can't exist. And having that over arrogance, and like I've always kind of said, although I'm leaning less towards it now, but I always said, like, the person who is for sure that God exists is just as confused as the person who's sure that they don't exist. I don't think that, and we have our own inclinations and experiences and other things, and I would probably less inclined to say that now based on my own experiences. But my point to that is, we can't be so sure one way or the other about things, because we have such a limited perspective based on, for one, here's something that most people don't think about. When they talk about these experts or these scientists, or, trust the science, or all these different things, we have to understand that the science is the observation of things that are happening. And the observation of those things are based on the capacity of the observer and the interpretation of that observer of the things that they're observing. So we just put all this blind faith, assuming that because you're a scientist, you're some super smart guy, that you know what you're talking about, or woman, or whatever it is, having never met these people, having no idea who these people even are, or what they've studied, or what they have any kind of background in, or anything. And we just put this blind faith into them. One, we're automatically assuming that they have benevolent intentions, right? Why do we assume that these scientists aren't bad people? Why don't we assume that they're people that are paid by the government? Or why do we automatically assume that they're good people with good intentions? And I'm not saying that they aren't, but why do we automatically assume that? Why don't we ever question and say, hey, what if this guy is trying to take over the world, and what would he be doing? Like Bill Gates, like, what would he be doing different if he wasn't trying to take over the world and depopulate it? What would he do different? Because right now he looks like he's trying to take over the world with his vaccine that he came up with, and can't keep a smile off his face every time he talks about killing half the population. So what would they be doing differently?
It's so interesting because I don't know. So first of all, I think it's also that we want to believe in the good human nature, but
Well,
we are
told that
also
too.
wired for the negativity so much. And that's the controversy. It's very interesting. We were talking about duality the whole time. And
Mm-hmm.
so my friend, for example, he used to be friends. He grew up in Iran, where you have to question everything because it's so dogmatic, or it has been, right? And at the same time, he put his entire trust into the scientist coming up with this vaccine. That has to be, right? What? you grow up questioning everything your entire life. Well, because it also depends, but his parental background and his grandparents and all that taught him to knowledge is the power, which I don't think it's true, because it's the application of knowledge. You can have knowledge and do nothing with it. So that's what he proved. Okay, so he trusted the scientists and their vaccines. Wonderful. And then we split because of that, like 3 years of great friendship that was growing closer and closer, and I really value that person and everything, just gone with the wind. And so, and at the same time, there are teachers who I think I said that, so I'm going to say something, but don't trust me. That's how it should be.
Mhm. Yeah, I
And
mean,
then tell it the kid, tell this to, okay, maybe not elementary school, but like high school, I'm going to teach you something, but don't trust me. How are they going to be like, what? But that's how it has to start.
yeah. Well, and there's this illusion that's created through all of this that, and it was the same thing I think I mentioned before once, when I was in the army, and, that you go through and you're first in there, and the drill sergeants, you assume they know everything about everything there is to know. And teachers the same way, that, when you're a child, you think they know everything and they have all the answers. And so we create this illusion of, that they have to be right because they're the person in charge telling me the answers and all these different things. And so, yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying. We have to start having that humility that, hey, this is the knowledge that we have to this point. It could be changing. It could, whatever else, it could be wrong. It could have been observed wrong. It could have been studied wrong. It could have been calculated wrong. Like, there's all those possibilities that could happen. And for us to think that that's not possible is just being, completely ignorant of how science has gone throughout history and, other things. And the whole point of science is to continuously prove itself wrong, and to continually question itself, and to continually, put those theories to test to make sure that they're provable over and over and over again. And this whole like trust the
So
science and
how,
it has to be real because of
right,
this
so
is
what is
ridiculous.
the science? The science is as good as the technologies.
And as good as the observer reporting the data, because one, how do you even know that what you're observing, that you're interpreting it correctly? I mean, how do you know for sure? You don't. You're just assuming that you do,
Mhm.
because that's, part of it. So, and like some of the other things I've seen too, where it just cracks me up, where they, I forget exactly what it was, but they were trying to prove something in space one time, and I saw they built this model of like this ship in this like little thing, and they did something with waves, and they're like, yeah, and this proves that, and I'm like, how? Like, how did you get that from, and you're just assuming that all the physics are the same, all these different things that have to be, perfect. And, you're in this controlled environment and all these things. And it's like, I can't wrap my head around you saying that, like saying, okay, this may be something, but when you're like, this is how it is, and this is how we proved it. And it's like, you didn't prove anything. You made a model and you made it do something that you wanted it to do. And you said that it did that. Like, that's all you really did. And I get that there are models that are perfect, that can give you much more accurate detail, but we have to understand that, like you said, it's all, the acute, what is it? Acute, I can't even think of the word. The acumen, there you go, of the, person observing, and them understanding what they're observing and interpreting it correctly. And then, that's one study done in one part of the earth in one type of controlled situation that, maybe it doesn't apply everywhere. We don't even know all of the way,
Of
because
course.
one of the things that cracks me up is like, well, that defied the laws of physics. And it's like, well, then is it a law? If something did, the opposite of what you're saying is possible, then doesn't that mean that the law needs to be reviewed and maybe rewritten? Or so, I don't know, just all of those things to me it kind of cracks me up that we came to this conclusion. It has to be true because we repeated it a couple of times, and it's like, but things change and we
They
should
do.
know that. Like,
Um,
so.
that's probably thinking about thinking should be taught as well, like the metacognition, right?
Mhm.
Meta physics, meta linguistics, meta everything.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
But um, I think because of all the remembering, right? A lot of people are, that's like the 3D, 4D, 5D, where we were completely, how do you call it if you want to use the adjective of amnesia?
Oh,
Like
yeah, I don't know.
amnesic? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I know what you're
So
saying.
we were completely wiped, right? And that's what we created.
Mhm.
Now we are remembering. So a lot of people are tapping into that wisdom of the
Mhm.
universe. And more people are like, how do I say, being stripped of that veil.
Yeah.
You for sure. And so a lot of other people are having downloads, let's say.
Mhm.
And that's what I want to ask you as well. We're going to actually realize all these things and teach the others, and I think a lot more people are going to be awakened, so aware, all open to this, right? um and yes, some people are just never going to get it, which is okay.
Mhm.
It's not really their fault. It's just what it is, doesn't matter. But
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you, so how has it changed for you in the past month? Like, they're saying that it's becoming more intense. And also, I'm not sure how much time you have, but if you want to talk about, they're saying now this 21 of December was one, right? Then it's going to be until March. Well, things are going to just really flip over. I don't know, but people are talking about like, what is it? This rioting is supposed to start, and they're going to be bringing these people to trials, and they're going to be like really, I don't know, put to either prisons or even killed by some riots and so on. I don't know, but things are gonna start changing really after March or something. Like that's where the 5D is gonna really show off itself or something. I don't know. So if you want to unveil that one.
I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't have any answers. I've been kind
But
of questioning the same
from your
thing.
own personal change, like what happened to you?
As
What did you go through? Like this energetic update, and our
recently, you
heart
think?
chakra is supposed to open up so much more and so on.
Well, I was curious to say, like, I felt like I've been getting some crazy headaches for the last like month or so. And then I've had a few days where I felt like I was going to pass out, like super, just kind of in and out of it, whatever, faint. But other than that, I've kind of been questioning the same thing because I've been hearing about it and I've been hearing people saying how intense it is and certain things. And so, part of me, I'm like, did I already go through that stuff? And so I'm already kind of, the energy's more catching up to me, because I definitely felt some of those things like when I first started communicating with Araya and stuff, and the big energy changes in myself and that sort of thing. So I'm wondering if I went through it more back then, on a personal level, and now it's happening on a collective level. So I'm not necessarily feeling it the same as other people. I'm not 100% sure. I've been kind of questioning the same. Um, I've kind of get the same feeling. Like I don't know. I've been hearing about these arrests and all this stuff supposedly supposed to happen for at least over a year now. So I don't get too excited whenever I hear people say that it's coming, because I've been hearing that for at least a year and a half. I hope, but I'm not too excited. I think it's going to come eventually. I don't know what has to happen in the meantime, what they're waiting for, whatever. I don't know. Um, my own personal, and I said this the other day to my wife, and I don't know why I get this feeling, but I feel like a lot of people are going to start dying soon for some reason. So whether it's they're going to release some new variant that's real, that's really going to take people out, whether it's the vaccine or whether it's something else, or whether it's just going to be the ascension and people just can't rise with the vibration. I don't know what it's going to, I get the feeling that a lot of people are going to start dying soon. I can't explain why, or I haven't channeled that. So I'm saying this is
Yeah.
my own personal, I don't know.
Well, it has to come from somewhere, and not necessarily it's true, because obviously intuition is as amazing, but um, there there has to be truth to it as well. So we cannot diminish it completely, but
If you want my
I don't
personal
think it's.
opinion on what I think is going to happen, I think that a lot of vaccinated people are going to start dying, and they're going to say that they were unvaccinated because they didn't have all their boosters or whatever else it is, so that they can consider them unvaxxed. And then they're going to say this is the death of the unvaxxed winter, and that they're going to use that to try to scare people to get the vaccine. And then more people are going to die. And then it's going to be kind of a perpetual cycle until people figure out what the hell's going on. That's my personal opinion about what's going to happen. But I don't know. I guess we'll see. Because
We'll see.
I tend to, I've heard the conspiracy theory with the 5G and the things and the vaccine and different things like that. And it's, one, if you're not paying attention to the conspiracy theorists at this point, you're definitely not paying attention, because they've been pretty right about everything so far. But it does concern me whenever you see all of these telephone, T-Mobile and Verizon and AT&T and all the other major ones all want to give you a free 5G phone all of a sudden, right when they're giving out all these vaccines for free. It just is like too coincidental to me for it to not be connected in some way. Why would you give away, they're saying, bring in your old phone that's smashed to bits and we'll give you a brand new 5G phone for free. And it's like, why would you do that? Why in the world would a company do that? It doesn't make sense unless there's something more nefarious behind it. But, and maybe I'm completely wrong. I have no idea, obviously. But, it makes sense to me that everybody gets a 5G phone. Christmas just happened. And then they say about this winter of death on, the White House webpage. I don't know if you saw that. And then they're saying, it just makes sense to me that they've reclassified what it is to be unvaccinated. So now if you don't have like your third and fourth booster, you're considered unvaccinated again. So they reclassified that. Then when all those people start dying from the vaccine, they can say, oh, look, all the unvaxxed people died and it's all your fault. And they can blame all those people to scare more people to getting the vaccine. That to me is what's going to happen.
Yeah, well, when it comes to the Ascension, I don't think it's going to just like happen overnight or something. It's too good to be true or something. I don't know. And
I just don't think it's possible with, especially seeing over the past few months how things have went. I don't think it's possible. People are too stuck in their own ways, regardless of the information that they receive.
I just don't think it's gonna come for free. So you have to do the work.
Yeah.
So anyway, and when it comes back to this vaccination, so interesting post I saw. I never really thought about it. So this guy was saying like, I got COVID the second time. So how is it possible that we've been in pandemic for this, let's say 2 years, right? And we still haven't found a cure nor prevention, but they're vaccinating people. And then it hit me like, it's interesting that this was posted as a story on Instagram by a person that was vaccinated. So like, exactly. Isn't it the first thing that you would think? There is like a bacteria, virus or something, and everybody's getting sick. So let's find a cure instead of, yeah, vaccinating. And I'm proud of all of you that you are getting vaccinated, global, like,
but that's
massive
people
vaccination.
think that they're getting the cure because they don't pay attention.
Exactly. And then when you are like, oh, so you are anti-vax, right? What kind of reaction is that? So it was like, wow. And it's a person that is actually what is it, like it's a startup company. They are 3 guys and they started as a freelancers to teach, and it's a critical language education. So it's like critical approach to education altogether, right? And yet, well, so it's in one person, very controversial attitude towards 2 different things. Like, it's great when it comes to education, but when it comes to certain things like life, I'm really questioning the I don't know, sanity of that person.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that needs to be looked at way more. And what are people's agendas and their intentions, and why did they want, these certain things? And we're failing to ask those questions anymore because we're so politically correct and we don't want to offend people and we don't want to, do this, or if this person is part of this group, then we can't touch them. We can't ask them any questions. We can't question their motives because they're a protected group. And it's like they've created all of this on purpose. And people can't realize that they've created this society where you can't question certain groups. So those groups make all the rules. They're the ones who do everything because you can't question them because you're a bigot if you do or whatever. So you see how they've created this society that they want and what it's done and what kind of echo chamber it's created because people are fearful to speak out against it.
For me, it would be confidence. I just don't have enough information to be able to argue. And I think that goes for a lot of other people. I don't know. What do you think?
Unfortunately, confidence is something that runs in high supply for ignorant people for whatever reason. So I think that they hear, like you said, or like you were saying earlier, they read one sentence out of a book and then proclaim that they understand the whole book and go tell everybody else all about that book and how they need to live their lives. And I mean, I'm pretty much just described Christianity on a large scale right there, or any religion really. Half the people have never even read the whole book or anything, but proclaim to be this, whatever. So I think that's a large part of it, is confidence comes in high supply with people who are ignorant a lot of times.
So for me, it was very interesting to go through this, my all personal, I would call it bullshit, but it wasn't really, it was just stupid. But anyway, it taught me a lot. And for example, where there's a shame, there's a pride as well. And so for sure, if maybe in different areas, but we all have it, like the whole spectrum. You can go from shame would be the lowest, right, all the way to enlightenment is the highest on the spectrum of the consciousness, right? We have it all, really, because I realized that on myself, where I would feel, let's say I was shamed, and I felt that shame because, let's say, I wasn't educated in a certain area, right? And I was maybe even called the anti-vax, ha ha ha, or something. And then at the same time, I was maybe too proud in other areas, right, as well. And so it was very interesting to find out, what are you doing to yourself, right? It's just my bullshit, my way of thinking. Then maybe I feel more confident over somebody else in some spectrum, and then at the same time, it could easily be done by that person to shame me on the other areas of my life, right? Where you can't even, I don't know, get up on time. Where's your time management, for example, or stuff like that, right? So, and I'm not like, at the same time, I'm like, I'm not proud. Like, yeah, you can shame me because it's true. I take it. It's like, anyway, whatever. But where I do feel strong enough in some areas, like, you don't do this to me. Like, I do set the boundaries, right? And it wasn't always easy. So, for example, it could be where you struggle the most. It could be the conditioning from the society. For example, you were expected to be somehow because you look that way. So you are expected to have certain qualities.
Right. I'm gonna let my dogs out. Go ahead. Keep going.
Sure.
Go.
Your doggies. You have 2 dogs?
Yeah.
Are
both wanting to go outside. So
just wanted to also ask you, how do they play with the cats?
one of them does. The other one not so much. He's the one who's responsible for the cat having one eye.
So funny. Anyway, so I was saying that it's a lot of conditioning, right? Where you are expected to be the good parent, the good mother, because you look certain way. It goes together hand in hand. And it's like, what? You're not? So just because you are a tall, maybe person, you look like you should be strong enough. Well, what? You can't even lift this 50-pound bag of rice or something, No, I'm not supposed to. Just because I maybe am white person with blue eyes, you should be really good teacher, And it's like, what? It's because the Chinese students of mine, they expected me to be certain way because I look certain way. And it's like, oh my gosh, well, sorry to what is it, strip you of your what? Of your
a stereotype where
stereotyping, yeah.
Which, I mean, and I always say stereotyping came from somewhere at some point, right? There was some truth to it at some point. So, that's where it came from. But that doesn't mean that it's always true, like you said. But yeah, I see what you're saying. And I think that we've just kind of put generalizations on certain people and certain things. And that I think that's sort of our society as a whole, is part of our problem, is this everything, we've just completely lack nuance anymore, and everything has to fit into this square box, otherwise it doesn't work. And I feel like we completely have failed to see that everybody is a unique individual in more ways than we can probably even comprehend.
So I think that ascension is not going to happen unless we're going to lose the identity that we have so much about ourselves. Like, for example, there was a question, how do I, find out who I am? Well, do things that you've never done, go beyond your limits. So then, let's see, one of the ways, it is like the ayahuasca. It takes you completely off your balance, and then you're like, is this all that is coming up through this not session, how do they call it, like a trip or something, right? Journey. You're going to find out so many things about yourself. And then when you sober up, you're going to find out like, oh, that's who I thought I was, but I'm also this. And then you um you become so mixed up that you are basically nothing, and then you can recreate yourself again, right? So if you think
Yeah.
that you are too much into your own ways, do something completely out of your ways, and then see who you actually are. How do you react to it? What kind of emotions or abilities it brings or it doesn't bring, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I was going through, and I'm so grateful for that, because I'm not done for sure, but things that I had to deal with, they had their priorities, and I'm so more empowered to go even more. And that's where I think we all have to be on this kind of point in our life where you're not going to be scared to just like, you know what, I need to find out more. Who
Yeah.
actually am I, right? And you go
Yeah.
more and more and more. And not to that extent I'm going to endanger myself. I'm not going to go crazy and let me see how I can do this, let me see how I can handle that. No, obviously. But until we are all going to be open to this, we want to ascend. And so having 9 to 5 job and this routine, that's not going to happen in you. So let's say if you said you're going to have to lose everything in order for you to just like be at the lowest point of your, I don't know, security level, where you're going to have to do something, like something erupts in you and you're just like going to be, oh, I have to, overcome this, or I just die. And if I die, I die. Okay. So I didn't make it,
Yeah.
So um, how many people are doing this?
I think, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely hard to say,
Right.
especially a percentage or anything like that. But I definitely think a lot of people, especially who are going through, I mean, it's funny to talk to, I shouldn't say it's funny, but how many people in this same situation are unemployed or, figuring things out kind of for the first time in a way, where it's like, how do I support myself independently without anybody else having to pay me, or not having to do what I don't want to do, trading my time for money, basically, where I'm doing something that I want to do that supports me, and I think so many people who are on this same journey right now are experiencing the same thing, job loss, and figuring things out for themselves and kind of having to rebuild and rebrand and figure out how that they're going to make themselves sustainable on their own. And I think that's scary for a lot of people. I mean,
it,
obviously
it is scary for all of
and
us, I think.
and
Yeah.
I think because that's what I always say, like I really couldn't imagine what I would be going through right now if I didn't have this connection and like where I can get answers, and even though they're answers I don't appreciate all the time, and they're like, yeah, you're fine, you're divinely taken care of, blah 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 blah, and it's like,
We all
okay,
are.
but how do
We
I
all
pay my
are.
bills? And they're like, oh, you're good, and I'm like, am I? Because it's hard for me to see, and obviously they see more than I do, but I can only imagine not having that connection where at least they're like, hey, you're fine, where it's just like, what is happening here, everything's falling apart, like.
So you're talking about connection that you have directly, these channeling, and then
Yeah.
you are definitely, yeah. So a lot of people don't, but we do. We just have to get there.
Right.
And so it's impossible to be human being without that, because you're not human being only, you're a divine being
Mhm.
as well, right? So we all have it. And so maybe that's where it's pushing you to find it out, to make that connection.
Well, and every time I kind of think like, man, as much as I think if I got all the money that I want and all these things, I would probably be fine. And, I've learned enough lessons or whatever without the money and stuff. But then every once in a while something comes up and I'm like, okay, I still kind of get it. I guess there's still things I got to figure out or still learn or whatever it is. And, I see the light at the end. Like they showed me a few months back where it was this, like an image of like a beach and like a big storm happening, but then way back in the distance, you see like it clearing up, and it's kind of passing through. And now I see much less storm and much more beach. So I'm hoping that I'm getting close to, the end of it, and where
Mm,
I don't know why, but 2022 feels like it's going to be a big year of things kind of turning around for a lot of
yeah,
people. I
yeah.
hope that that's true. Because so far I've been, and even the last month or so, I've really been questioning things, to be honest with you. I've really been kind of, and I go through it every so often anyway, but just, other people questioning me and questioning my validity of the information that I'm getting. And then I'm questioning myself, because I don't want to be inauthentic. I'm not trying to, I don't have any motive to do this other than they've asked me to. I never wanted to be on YouTube. I never wanted to do any of this stuff.
To be honest,
So,
neither myself.
right. And so that's why it's like, I don't have any, I'm not making money off of this. Obviously, I don't get anything out of this other than sharing whatever messages they have for me. I hope that I'm authentic. I hope that I'm sharing what I think I'm sharing. I hope that everything is face value. But I mean, I go back to the possibility that we're all just stuck in this matrix and there's this illusion of us escaping and they just want us to have hope so we don't fight back. And then it's all just gonna, so I don't know, maybe we're stuck in that paradox. I have no idea. So nobody can really be totally sure what's going on here. We all have our assumptions and what we hope is going on and we assume is true and all that stuff. But for all we know, the darkness already won and they're just playing both sides to make us feel like there's this glimmer of hope and we're just on this slave planet forever. I don't know. I really don't know. And I go back and forth questioning everything multiple times. And, hopefully that keeps me grounded.
Well, yes, but at the same time, it's, having intellectual side of you winning over so the Christ consciousness is like the heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I think a lot of people have to come to this point of trusting that intuition, coming to their heart space and then making it balanced in its work. So just because, let's say, I don't have that connection that you do and a lot of other people don't, doesn't mean that you're the chosen one because maybe you've done your work already. So this is the reward, right?
Yeah.
In this time and space. And we had that, we lost it, and then we were taking that off, coming to this, subscribing to these lives or something, right? And I think that we have to work towards it, and everybody has different journey. That's all.
I agree with that for
yeah.
sure.
So, I'm not feeling any less or more. It's not even different. It's me, and everything else is my projection.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I think of it this way, that let's say there's nobody in this world, just me. I'm just making everything up, right? So that's then the easiest way. Don't, think of some other people like, oh, you are in better position, or you're much further, or you're way behind or something. No, it's not, that doesn't exist. All that exists is your consciousness, and work from that space, and then just go on and on and on. And that's what I said to myself, like it was yesterday as well. This is who you are. This is basically how you were created. A lot of things you maybe make yourself struggle for a long time unnecessarily. And with a lot of things, you are maybe too naive. So, you have to kind of question more, or let's say, blah, blah, blah. Right? And that's the realization that, oh, so I was that, I can be something else. And it is not even about like, I have this privilege because I have connection to these higher beings or something. We all have, they are always there. They're never gone, but it's me, what I am maybe making it like for myself in each of these
I would
moments.
say that one man's privilege is another man's burden too, because
Exactly.
there are days where I view it from both perspectives for sure. Because on the days where I feel like there's no hope and that we're kind of being led astray, but I know that I'm communicating and there's things that, I can't deny. And there's experiences that I've had that no matter how much I question things or try to be logical or anything else, there's no way around it. I know exactly what I've seen. I've had other people who've seen the same things I've seen with me and experienced the same things. And there's just too much undeniable in that regard. Do I think that all of my channelings have been perfect and pure and not been distorted in any way? I have no idea. I hope so, but I mean, I can't be sure. I can't be sure that some things weren't my own subconscious, leaking in some way. I don't know. I'm hoping that I'm doing my best. I'm doing everything that I have been taught to do to not have that happen, but I can't guarantee one way or the other. And part of the message that Jesus told me one time, the times that I was doing meditation, and he said, some of the messages, I think like some of the last two Araya messages were actually his. And I, just didn't ask who it was that was giving me the message, just assuming it was Araya. And I was like, well, do you want me to change it? And they're like, no, it doesn't matter who the message comes from as long as the message is received. And so that being said, it kind of goes back to the point, well, does it even matter if it's Jesus or Araya or me or my subconscious or anybody, as long as the message is pure and what, the message is supposed to be? Does it really matter who said it or where it came from? And so it's like, well, I guess not. So, what does it really matter in the end? As long as the message is what the message is supposed to be and received in the right way, then what does it matter who said it or where it came from?
And that's the only thing that I would love to be more, I would say, educated or informed about. Is a lot of people are having these guided meditations to meet your higher self, and it's like go up and look, and it's like, oh, this big being or something. And then other people are saying, no, it's inside of you, so just go inside, basically, like and that's who you are. You are the body, but you are your spirit, soul, and body. I forgot how it is.
Mind, body,
It's
spirit.
your
Mind, body, spirit.
mind. What is mind? Yeah. Anyway, I again don't want to say something that is like completely not the way it is, but let's say the best way to just also not take yourself so seriously and be living. The best way to be actually spiritual is to be in the body, enjoying food, right? Enjoying dancing, enjoying what else? Like just these things that are a lot of times
just things that
being
give you joy.
Mhm.
Just things that give you joy.
Things that they give you joy, but a lot of people are focusing more on the abstract, like going just like, oh, meditate and it's like gonna elevate me or something. And it's like, no, maybe laughter where you are having good company is like trivial things, right?
Yeah.
And that's where you live the best way. That's where the spirit and your soul is reflected in, like through your body. So that's what a lot of people are trying not to do, right? They're trying to push these pleasures away.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the opposite what we should do. We actually
Right.
should go back to these pleasures of this earthly life.
Right.
And
Because I think
you know
deprivation and all these other things are like the exact opposite of what they are intended to seem, and how religion has hijacked that,
that, yes.
idea of, like with the flagellation and all these, repenting for your sins and all these other things that are just completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And how, yeah, this, like, you have to, so I see both sides of it too, because like fasting, for instance, it's hard to fast if you've ever fasted before, especially further than a day or so. Like the farthest I've ever made it was 5 days. And
Wow.
yeah, and that was just water fast. And but the benefit of doing so is incredible. And now I get, somebody who doesn't have as much fat on them as me or whatever else, their composition, it might not work for them and it may do more harm than it is good, so everybody's different. But for me, and for one, the first thing that it does, the most beneficial thing that I noticed from fasting, and I do intermittent fasting every day, but is it resets your hunger meter, or however you want to look at it. So one thing that we have to realize is we've been so programmed to eat, like my great grandpa, 6 in the morning, 12 at noon, and 6 at night, 3 meals a day. And you always ate at those 3 times, like it was, programmed in, instead of well, I'm not hungry at 6 a.m. I'm not even hungry till 3 p.m. Why do I got to eat breakfast and lunch if I'm not even hungry? And that reprogramming and realizing, like, most days I eat one meal a day. I don't even eat twice or three times a day because I'm not hungry. Like, and once I reprogrammed that through fasting and realized that I really only need one, I eat a big meal, but usually one big meal a day, and that's it. And other days I eat lunch too if I'm hungry. Like, it just depends. But just resetting that and realizing that so much of our hunger is just kind of programmed into us, and that we're not actually hungry. And also that thirst can also disguise itself as hunger. And sometimes you just need more water and it shows up as hunger pangs. And so, understanding that too, but also the mental clarity that I got, the, yeah, there was just my body was just like buzzing, like it just felt good. The cellular, I forget what it's called, autophagy. I forget exactly what it's called, but basically, so what happens when your body goes through a lack of food for so long and it doesn't have anything? Here's the main things that happen. So your body is going to transition from, normally the normal diet that most Western people eat has a lot of carbohydrates and sugars, which carbohydrates are just complex sugars. But anyways, those break down, in different ways. And then once those food sources are gone, it'll start to eat the fats. So understand this now, the whole fat-free fad that they did, all they did was they took the fat out, which fat is actually good for you, and they substitute it with sugar, which is bad for you, which is why diabetes and obesity has been an epidemic ever since they came up with this heart disease coming from fat and all this stuff. Anyways, the fat, once your body burns through those things, it will start to turn to fat as a fuel source. So all the fat that you have on your body, it'll start to burn naturally. So now when you eat fat, it'll burn that first, and then it just redesigns the way your body processes energy. Then on top of that, once you hit, I believe it's 36 hours fasting, your body starts to go to where all of the cells that are, cancer cells that are growing out of control, or that aren't, that need repaired or whatever else, they will eat those cells and regenerate them. So you turn to those as a fuel source. They'll eat all the bad cells, and then, you're reproducing good cells. So it's basically, there's so many different factors to why fasting is good for you, but those are the main things that, you're not getting that when you're eating food all the time. You're not getting the sleep that you're, could be getting because your body, you just ate at 9 o'clock and now you're going to bed and trying to digest all night instead of recuperating and, that cellular regeneration that is supposed to happen. So it just reprograms all of those things and allows your body to kind of hit reset. And
Yeah.
I've noticed huge benefits from fasting. And like I said, I intermittent fast every day. I don't eat before noon, and I don't really eat past, 7 or 8 o'clock at night usually. So, and I'm not too strict about it. If I want to eat at 11:30 and I'm hungry, I'll eat 11:30, so
Exactly.
it's kind of, I'm not too rigid about it, but I try to keep so many hours in between. And I notice a difference and I feel better when I do it. And, it can be hard getting through that. And, you're kind of sacrificing and you're feeling the hunger pangs and you're, feeling like you're torturing yourself going through it, but then the end result is something good. So it's kind of,
So it's actually something I heard that you should eat when you are not hungry. Let's say it doesn't mean meal, right? So let's say you would have the schedule each, let's say 4 hours, right? Let's say, and you wouldn't do that, but let's say you would eat breakfast and then you would eat some kind of snack, right? And then you would skip for the rest of the day, you wouldn't eat anything. That's how you kind of throw off your routine, right?
mhm.
And that's when you, after a few days, start tapping back into, I just eat whenever I'm hungry. And you may as well realize that I feel hungry each 2 days.
Yeah. And that can
Right.
happen. There's some days I don't eat at all. Yeah, it really just depends on how you feel. And I think, sometimes if you eat a big lunch and you feel full at dinner, like, don't eat dinner then. You don't have to eat dinner just because,
Yeah. So it wasn't like when you are really, really full, but just like fine, right? Eat
No, I know
then.
what you're saying. I've heard of that diet too. And this is what I will, say with everything. Everybody's body is different. What may work for me isn't
Yeah, but
necessarily going
it's
to work
when
for
you
you.
start
So
creating this kind of addiction, or start kind of creating
the
this, oh,
theory
I have to
behind
be
it,
even.
The theory behind all those small meals a day is it keeps your metabolism burning constantly, so that you're
No, it's
constantly.
not about that. It's not even like diet. It's the consciousness where you deprogram your or
Oh, you're
reprogram your
talking about as a
consciousness.
programming thing. Okay, I
Yeah.
see what
So
you're
for example, if you um let's say eat and then you eat again, and it doesn't matter how big, it's really up to you, and how often, but it's the point would be just to notice that um yeah, I eventually end up just eating what I feel for right at that moment and how much I feel for right at the moment. And when you if you would track yourself back, let's say you do a few months, let's say, right? Oh, okay. So I realized that I was on one orange, and then the next 2, 3 days I didn't eat. And then I ate, I don't know, butter chicken or something, right? And you are totally fine, because what you did is your brain is asking for what it needs right then
Yeah.
moment and
So
how
it's kind
much
of
it
doing it in
needs.
a backwards way. Like you're overfeeding yourself to realize when you do and don't need to eat instead of underfeeding yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of seems, yeah, just like the opposite. I get both ways. I can see the other one being a very slippery slope towards, I mean, depending on what you're snacking on every couple hours. I could see, people saying, "Hey,
Um,
I'm eating 7 meals a day and I'm not losing any weight." And it's like, yeah, but you're eating,
yeah, because if you want to be losing weight, right, that's what you are focusing on. And if you're not,
you're
if you're
saying
just
so completely about
eating
reprogramming.
for pleasure, right,
Yeah,
for the
I see
real
that.
pleasure, not for like indulgence, right, but like it would be ideal, that you feel for something and you have it at home. If you
Hmm.
don't, right, then you have to go and buy it. Oh, I'm not going to buy it. So, okay, I just don't eat, or I eat something else, right? And then you
Hmm.
eat crap,
Hmm.
chocolate instead of orange or something, right?
Right.
But
That's
yeah,
where I
I
started going back.
ideally, and it happens, right? My kids were the other day were asking for hot dogs, and I'm like, goodness, when was the last time we had hot dogs, right, at home? Like, I don't even buy that. But would I never buy it for them? I would probably eat hot dog myself one day again.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't, but it is like maybe one day I will feel for it and I'll have it. Why fucking not, right?
and this is something that just occurred to me, and maybe it's true or not, I don't know, but going back to that sort of placebo effect, like maybe food is more bad for us because we believe it's bad for us rather than it is just being inherently bad for us. And so
Yeah.
when we put that connotation, oh, I know these hot dogs are bad for me, but I'm eating them anyway, well, now they're bad for you because you said that. Or maybe they wouldn't be if you didn't believe that way, right? So, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong, I just, another perspective to think about, because I wonder, you know there's certain people you look at that you're like, how do you possibly eat all the food that you eat and look as good as you do? And then you see other people who barely eat anything and they're completely overweight and unhealthy. So it's like, how does that make any sense? Unless what you believe is true. So if you believe that everything you eat is terrible for you, then it will be. And if you believe that you don't gain any weight or anything because you have a good metabolism, then that'll probably be true also.
Well, that's what, again, it's like the conventional way of thinking, that it's the metabolism. But I think essentially it is joy again. It's like with sex, for example, and it's compatibility. Some people have just different libido, right? Some
Mhm.
people have different needs, and when the needs can be reflected in like what is it, like the kind of sex they want to have, right? For some people it's just kissing enough, right? And some people have to, like, I don't know, whatever, have hardcore sex all the time. And so what's wrong is when you don't find a compatible partner,
Yeah.
right? And it's all amazing if you find a compatible partner and that's what you have all the time. And it's horrifying to some other people, but like I don't have anything to do with that. It's really what feeds my, I don't know, design. That's
And
my
I think
human
food
design.
is
And
exactly, you're saying the same thing is, maybe eating chocolate doesn't affect you in the same way it affects me. Maybe you can eat it and it's totally good for you. And when I eat it, it's totally bad for me. And there's all those possibilities. And that's where like this one size fits all approach is just ridiculous to me,
yeah,
because
yeah.
I truly believe there's people that could probably be totally healthy off of eating candy all the time if they believed it to enough of the point where, I think that there's so much of that we don't, give any validity to, because there's no science to prove it right now. But I believe that I mean, you see it in people. You see people who don't have good diets, but they, and there's the like, skinny fat or whatever they call people too, where, you're not necessarily healthy just because you're skinny, but um so there's all the different variations of all that too. But I do believe that, when we try to say, like I just said with fasting, it worked great for me and I saw great benefits, but maybe doing that food thing, it works better for somebody else, where they eat more than they should until they realize that they don't need to. Maybe that works better for other people. And maybe that's a better alternative for people who need to eat, who have much less fat store. Maybe that's a better alternative for them to figure out how to reprogram their eating habits, rather than having to starve themselves because they don't have that supply to survive on. So I can't say what's good for me is good for anybody else.
No,
I know what
no,
works for
no.
me. Yeah.
So again, it's the attunement, right? And you can screw people up because yes, you have, let's say, kids, or you have somebody in your custody, and that's where you like nurses, right? Or I don't know, doctors, and you have to, and so on. And maybe that pill, like that was the worst thing, when I was a kid, and the antibiotics, oh yeah, each 8 hours, and my mother would wake me up 3 o'clock to eat the pill, and it's like, and oh goodness Lord. But yeah, and I think that's strength over your own. I'm not sure what it is it the consciousness, is it your intuition that you have really well developed, where you have the power over yourself? I think I do. I wish that everybody does. And I really don't struggle mentally, or I don't struggle physically, but I struggle emotionally. That's where my weaknesses are. So that's what I have to work on. And so, you know, the attunement, it's where eventually everybody needs to get. And then I think we're going to have much better society. That's all.
Well, yeah. I think, like you said, people need to be in tune with their own bodies too, and know what works for them. And some people
That's
do,
what I
and some
meant.
people
Yeah.
don't. Yeah. Well, I think it's, attunement with your emotions, all that stuff too. But like for eating or what exercise is good for you, all those different things, I think most people have a pretty good idea of what their body wants or needs. Whether they listen to it or maybe understand it, is another level. But I think most people understand when they get cravings that there's something behind it. I would hope that there's, some sort of their body is craving something, whether it's what they're actually thinking of, or they're, like some people will crave, chocolate or something when they're really need, fruit, the sugar from the fruit and stuff like that. So it can be misinterpretations of things too. But some people need to exercise more than others. Some people, and so I think just listening to your body and knowing, like the last couple of days, we've just been kind of sitting around watching Christmas movies and not really doing much. And my body is just like, you need to get rid of some of this excess energy. Like I just feel it all just, building up into me, this like anxious feeling. And, I'm sure everybody's kind of, I just feel everybody else is kind of anxious, buildup of energy too. Just, everybody's sitting around for a few days. That's what sort of starts to happen.
And going back to, you froze a little bit. Going back to even this education, like a lot of courses started coming up, especially for women, the goddesses, because going back to like your sexuality, your moon cycles, your compatibility with yourself, basically, like what is your need? Because many times you felt manipulated into working so much more, or having certain relationships, or not expressing yourself in certain areas, especially sexually. A lot of women, oh my gosh, have so many, like, I don't know, heaviness, because they were perceived certain way, and I don't. And I'm it's just so funny how these courses are, and then module 1, 2, 3, and you have to go through it, and it's maybe that's not what I need exactly. Maybe this week something else is coming up for me, and maybe I need the whole month to work on, let's say, some kind of like what is good for me to eat, right? But no, we have to move on to the next module. And it's like, hold on, I didn't finish, right? I need more time, and so on. And I notice about myself, for me, it's longer. Everything takes me simply longer, right? Maybe certain things take me shorter, but it's very interesting how you are also not attuned to what is genuinely given to you. So these coaches, right, they're just like popping up, and I understand everybody wants to have their own financial freedom of time, so they're coming up with these courses, and it's all great, and generally people do want to improve, so they do want to take these courses, right? But again, it's so linear, and we're moving into this feminine energy when things are just flowing, and do it at your own pace and something, but it isn't. it's still very structured. And, when I was teaching, I was getting feedback, oh, there's no structure. And I'm like, how do I know what is good for you? And
Right.
it's because I don't even know. You are my teacher, but you have to know what you need to know.
Well, and that's the problem right there is, people assume that because you're the teacher, and that, and then you understanding the real problem that people don't really know and they need to understand for themselves, and it doesn't work. It's two different, it's like the 3D and the 5D clashing right now, and that's where I said I feel like I'm in two different worlds most of the time, and I can, I understand where we're coming from, and I can understand where we're going, like we're talking about that, universal basic income and stuff like that, but that bridging the gap and, kind of, I read a quote the other day that it's never been more apparent in history that, um, people are living in different frequencies and, seeing the same events and perceiving them completely differently. And so I think that all plays into all of this, where it's so hard to, we're trying to forge the new world while the old world is kind of crumbling behind us. And so we're kind of caught in the in between, trying to figure out what's right for, where we're headed, but also what's right for where we're still at. And it's just a very difficult time to be in, I think,
It
in a lot of
is. It
ways.
is. That's why
And
it's good to always go ahead. Sorry.
well, I was just gonna say, my friend and I were talking the other day about, what was I just gonna say? Um, I guess just that living in the two worlds of, being able to see the both perspectives and this split happening of, um, we have to live in reality of what still is, while at the same time trying to steer it towards what we want it to be. And, it's kind of, oh, I remember what we were talking about, you have all these groups, just teachers and doctors and police and all these other, and all the people that have the convictions and that are willing to stand up for what's right and, what they believe and all these other things, and they're all being pushed out of all of these different organizations. So all that's left is the people that go along and do what they're told, and there's no more people standing up because they've had enough and they're tired of being ostracized or whatever it is. So they leave these different institutions, and you and I are one, two of them right here. um and so it's just interesting how it's all kind of playing out in that way, where, all the good ones are being forced out. And so all you're left with is all the bad ones and all these different institutions. And I can't help but feel that there's some, that's done on purpose to some degree.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good time to question yourself. Just that's, I think, when they were saying, oh, these lockdowns were good because it didn't distract you, so you had time to think about yourself. I think not even that. It's now the time where okay, so let's say I'm gonna go back to the indulgence, right? Okay, so am I indulging myself, or I'm really just having pleasure at this moment, like I'm gonna eat the whole pizza?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it because I'm emotionally drained and I'm like this, and then so it's emotional eating, and it's like, I'm punishing myself and so on, right? It's the same thing for I don't know, having a party where I don't drink alcohol. All of a sudden I'm just gonna get drunk, like, oh, I can't take it, I'm just gonna, like, lose it, and I'm gonna get drunk, and then next day I'm gonna find out, oh, I shouldn't have done it, right? And so on. So that's where I think we were all this time, but now we're becoming more conscious of, like, I want to do this, like, hold on, why am I doing this? Is it because let's say I had enough of I want to relax myself, so is it this way I'm going to relax myself, or I'm going to relax myself different way, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
where you have to catch yourself, so then you don't manipulate yourself, you don't betray yourself and the others as well, right?
Right.
That's where I am, at least, right? And so I, not that I don't really care about the others, but I have a lot of work with myself, so I
Yeah.
don't have really time for the others. And so I realized that, for example, if I would like to be, tutoring someone or mentoring someone, it's not my time, because I do have to go through a lot of work with myself. And you know for example, this I don't want to do this, having the fake paper, just to go to a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And it is really difficult life without, going to the movies, because I do feel like, yeah, it would be fantastic, go here, go there, and just be free again. But do I want to perpetuate and just like not be authentic? Like, no, I'm not vaccinated, I'm not gonna have the fake thing. But maybe I'm just too stubborn at the same time, because yeah, at the same time other people get to enjoy, fancy restaurant once more, because they have anniversary, they have, perfect date and so on, and they are not vaccinated, they are faking it. But then at the same time they're enjoying themselves, and I don't get to enjoy myself, right? And I'm like, but why do we have to do that? So everybody is like, I don't want to do that, but I have to, otherwise I'm just gonna sit at home. So I do present this fake, paper. And I'm like, why do we not just get together and just like overthrow this whole stupidity? And everybody's scared, or I don't
Well,
know what we are.
for one, I think the media has people, totally entranced, and they don't even know what's up or down or left or right anymore. They just do whatever they're told. They create this illusion of this vast majority that believes a certain type of way, which is completely incorrect. And like you said, it's all you, if everybody says, oh, we just have to do this to get back to normal. No, you don't. If you just stop going to the movies now because they require you to do this, they're either going to go out of business or they're going to change their rule.
We are
It's
not on
that
the same
simple.
page.
Yeah. So you really hold all the power. It's just you look at it in a different term. You think it's, I have to do this and then I can go there, or we can all not do it and we can all get our way because we don't have to. They're reliant on us. We're not reliant on them.
Yeah.
They require us to do anything. Without us, they don't make money. They don't do anything that they want to do. So all we have to do is say, okay, fine, you want to make that rule? We don't go there anymore. And either you go out of business or you change your rule and we go there. That's how simple it is. So if you'd rather have a business, then you do what we say or what we want, because that's who's really in charge. Or you can have your rule and you can have 4 people show up and that are vaccinated and you can all sit there and be, cowards together, or you can change the rule. I mean, that's really how all of this ends. And I keep seeing like calls for violence and different things. And this thing is so simple. I mean, it's not easy to do. And, it can't be just you and I and 5 other people. It has to be everybody. It has to be the vast majority that gets on board
Yeah.
with it. But as soon as we stop playing the game, stop paying taxes, stop playing the vaccination game, stop playing pandemic, stop playing the fear card, all these different things, everything ends. The government has no control without fear. And once you get rid of your fear, there is no more control.
Yeah. And why we can't be on that same page to do that? I'm totally fine with that. I don't
Well,
fear,
it's
because I
this
have nothing to
fear.
lose, really. Do I?
Well, that's the thing, is people always say, what do I have to lose? And some people have a lot to lose. And I get I get that fear.
I
People have
get
worked
that
hard
too.
to get to their house and their cushy jobs with their nice cars. People have worked really hard for that. And I don't take anything away from them. I've was
Well,
in the same spot, but I'm not going to,
actually did lose. It's like, told this story, I maybe twice, if not 3 times already. And so I have nothing more to lose.
right. And I think
I
that's
did.
when,
And I
but
know
here's
how
the
it
other thing.
feels. And I
Oh,
did work hard for it. Sorry.
right. Yeah. And it's tough. And I'm not saying it's easy or it's the best route to go necessarily, but if you have convictions and you believe in something, you shouldn't allow those things to be changed based on the way the world changes, unless you truly believe in it. We have to stand up for what we believe is right. And even if we're the only ones, we can't just go along to get along. That's not, at least me, I'd rather die. I'm not going to go along to get along. I do what I want to do because that's what I came here to do. So, and I'm not afraid of death. And I think that's the biggest thing for a lot of people is once you're not afraid of death, then what's there left to be afraid of? And I mean, my answer would be more being maimed and useless, but that's another story. But death does not scare me at all. And once you're not
But you
afraid
are
of death,
never truly worthless, right?
I just don't want to be like, where I'm blowing through a straw to get around. Like I would, that's my own mental, like, I don't want other people having to take care of me. I don't want to be, that all that goes with that stuff. It's nothing to do with,
But that's your conditioning too, though.
I don't want to, I want to be independent. My whole mission here, I feel like, is independence. And that's like, I want to be free, and I don't want anybody having to take care of me. I don't want to be reliant on anybody else. I want to be 100%
You
reliant
want
on
to be
myself.
capable of just doing your own.
Right.
Yes, I
Exactly.
understand. It's not like you don't want anybody to be helping you with certain things or collaborating or something. It's just like, exactly. You want to be sovereign person to be able to do what you need to get done for yourself.
Right. And
Okay.
I don't want to have other people rely on me to get those things, or, me be some kind of burden or anything like that. So that's my own
But
fear in
I
that
feel
side of
like I'm
things.
not allowed. I want the same thing. And I think a lot of other people want, but I'm not allowed.
Well, I think we're getting there though. We're changing society slowly to what we want to be and how we want it to, become. And I think having that freedom and that empowerment, but people have to know, they have to understand what freedom comes with too. It's responsibility, and there's things
Are
that
you
come with
ready for
freedom
it?
too. So, and it's responsibility for your own actions and yourself and those sort of things. And a lot of people aren't ready to have that sort of,
They aren't. They
relationship
aren't.
with the world. They want to be dependent on other people. So if they make a decision that's wrong, it's on somebody else. It's not their fault. They can't be blamed. And so it creates
But
this perpetual society.
yeah, I'm just thinking that, I had to go through it and I'm pretty sure you did. If it's not this life, some other time you did. And I struggled because I was, putting it on myself. That's what my realization was, right?
Mm.
And I now feel stronger to be responsible for my actions, for my whatever. And I'm so much, how would I say, more courageous or brave to just do exactly what you're saying. I just want to be capable. I am capable. I want to be allowed to do that, and I'm not, basically, right? So that is the, how would I say, insanity that I am going through, that a lot of people are on the same page with me and you. We're not allowed, and it's because they don't like, or is it back me? Again,
Well,
I
but
don't
that's
allow
funny right there
myself.
in itself. Who says that we're not allowed?
We're
And
not
who
allowed.
gave these people this authority? I never consented to anybody having authority over me.
Yes,
So
yes.
how did we, just because I was born into this society, that why do I have to follow these rules? That doesn't make sense to me. Why can't we change if they created the rules in some older time that doesn't make any sense anymore? Why can't we change the rules
It's
to,
not even that. It's like far gone from for me, at least, and I'm pretty sure for you too.
yeah.
I really feel the restriction of these stupid vaccination stuff.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's everywhere though, right? I mean,
It
it's
is.
them telling you what bathrooms to use, or what, whatever other controversial thing that they bring up in the media, that really, who should have any say in any of those things other than you? You're the one who should be in control of.
Um, yeah, I guess it's again because I certain things happened or something like that. I don't know. So they had to make these rules. Um,
Yeah, and I don't know. I always struggle with that too, because I do see that most rules are created, just like there's a warning on sandblasters not to point at your face, like somebody pointed it at their face and got their face blown apart. So they had to write that rule, right? So I get, and that's where I've come to the conclusion that we should live in a society that has guidelines based on trial and error, right? That, hey, we have stop signs and we have speed limits and we have these other things because when we didn't, more people got hurt and there was these other things. However, if you wish to go 100 miles an hour in this area and you go through and there's no problem and nobody gets hurt and nothing happens, oh well. If you go through and you hurt somebody or maim somebody or something else happens, now you're going to get charged with all these other crimes as well, as in addition to the one that you did. So I think that would be a better way than sitting there and charging somebody $150 for going 10 miles over on a speed limit when they're not endangering anybody or anything else and nothing is happening other than they broke some arbitrary law. I
yeah.
think that's the way we need to go forward, is have more nuance and understanding of, hey, there are people that can roll through stop signs at 3 a.m. because there's nobody else on the road and it doesn't matter. And if you give them a ticket, you're an asshole. But if that guy goes rolling through a stop sign and hits somebody, then he should get charged with hitting somebody and going through a stop sign and whatever else laws that he broke. So it's not so much of we're just dinging you to ding you, because really what it's turned into is revenue generation for the state, right? So now we can make up all these arbitrary laws and you barely infract them, or don't go to the letter of the law, and so we can charge you money, and the money goes to the state for whatever indulgences that they want. That I don't agree with. Having guidelines that make people, quote unquote, safer, that say, hey, we've done some research. It says if you go over 35 miles an hour around this corner, you don't have a good chance of controlling your vehicle. But if you go off into the side and smash your car, that's on you. And, so, you go 40 miles an hour around that curve and now you crash, and so now you're getting charged with all these extra crimes, right? So, I mean, I'm not saying that's a perfect society or anything like that, but I feel like we need to move away from trying to control so much and more provide, hey, this is why we chose this speed limit here, because we had so many accidents, or we determined that when you go around this angle of a corner at this speed, your car becomes more, like enlighten people and tell them why there's certain rules, and maybe
Yeah.
people will follow them more than just saying you have to do this or that.
So funny thing is also that um, sometimes there's like this divine intervention. I don't know how to call it. I went into the streetcar and I had a token, and I also had a card. So, you can tap from a card, or you can have the physical token, which they're trying to get rid of the tokens, right? And so I had both, but it was so packed, I couldn't get to the machines, either sides, right? So I couldn't use, but I had both. And then I was stopped and I didn't have the proof, like the proof of payment. So like the ticket or something, right? And so I was given like 400 something, what is it, fee? You call it
Fine.
fee? And
Yeah.
so then I told her, what is it, police or something, I don't know. And I showed her both and I just explained, and she's like, okay, for your honesty, I'm just gonna, lower it to like 50% off. It's not 50% off. What is it? Like half of it, whatever. And then there was on a ticket that I can have like a trial or something. So I didn't want to pay this money because I still didn't think it was fair. And so many people were like, just go to the court. And I did ask for the day off, and my boss was like, oh yeah, for sure, like that's fine. I was still paid and I still got to go to the court, so it was good, because a lot of times the employers would say like, oh no, you're taking off, so this is not paid or something, right? Anyway.
Mhm.
So I worked for a private company anyway, so I went there, and when it was my time, this other police guy is like, oh, the person doesn't even work here anymore, so all is canceled. So I didn't even have to go through the stress of having like trial or whatever, right? And so I was like, oh, that's very interesting. So actually it did show that I was more fair than not. At least that was my understanding of it. So many times, maybe, whatever happens, and you're being, tried and it's not fair, somewhere else is going to show its balance in your life. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. I don't know that it always happens, and maybe perspective is part of it too.
That's why I
The
laughed, like, I
silver
don't know how
lining.
to think of it, but yeah.
But yeah, I like that's the stuff that I'll never get on board with. Parking tickets and all those type of ridiculous, money. They're stealing your money and people are just totally okay with it. Like it just makes no sense to me how that we don't see what these things are. Just because the government steals your money doesn't make it any less stealing than anybody else doing it. If any other person in the world came up to you and said, you owe me $50 for parking here, what would you say to them? Like, so this whole like illusion of power that we've given these people, and where they can just tell us that we owe them money for no reason, and we're just like, okay, and we just pay it. And like, and what are you doing with that money? Where do our taxes go? Like, show me the bill, show me the receipt of what you're buying with all this stuff. How are all these politicians making $150,000 a year end up being multimillionaires? Explain that to me, and then I'll consider paying taxes again. Like, but
Mhm, mhm.
I don't know where we've gotten,
Same thing with
so far
charity,
gone.
right?
Yeah, that's all it is. We've created a charity for rich people.
Yeah, well, we're still so weak to it. That's ah, and
Conditioned. We're
mhm.
conditioned to think that they build the schools and they fix the roads. That's what our taxes do. And we have the worst roads and the worst schools in the world, and yet we're still, all we need is more money, all we need is more money, and we've been hearing the same thing for 40 years, all we need is more money, and nothing gets better except the paychecks that the politicians get. So I don't know how people can't see it. It's kind of getting like irritating to this point where it's just like, how are you people still so blind to this? How are you still so
Yeah.
caught up in this illusion?
You know, it wouldn't be surprising if you, so Africa generally has consciousness of like 40 to 70, right? So if you're going to supply them with all this, it's like where I come from, there is gypsies, and so they would build social housing and they would destroy it in a month. That's just what it is. And so that's where the rage can, you know, be fair, because why would you spend money on something that it's not going to be valued? So, you know, there is certain portion of these people in Africa where they're going to do something about it and with it. But if you have some Boko Haram, right, and you're going to supply them with some food or this and that and some kind of comfort, right? Do they deserve it? No, because all it is just like giving them even more fuel to do even more harm. And so, you know, but that's one thing. But what you're talking about is the United States. Like, come on, right? The consciousness is so much different, and it's still like,
Yeah,
why?
I think the consciousness may be higher on, you know, in a lot of areas. Like I was talking about, I don't know if I was talking to you, and I was definitely talking to my wife about it the other day, but just like watching movies and just thinking about the consciousness towards like animals and how much it's changed over the last like 30 or 40 years. And like I was talking to my dad the other day on the phone, and I'm like, do you remember we used to tie our dog up outside and go on vacation? Like our neighbor would come give it water and stuff. And I'm just like,
It
I
was
can't even
normal.
imagine keeping my dog out overnight. Like that just blows my mind. And to think we would go on vacation and just leave him tied up outside. And I'm just like, you know, that just that whole, you know, and that's within my lifetime and how much. And it was funny because I was watching, I'm sure you've seen the A Christmas Story, yeah, everybody, I'm sure. Well, that scene when he slams the dog's ear in the door and the dog's like going crazy. And I'm just like, they probably really did that. And they probably really did it multiple times to get that scene, because they, you know, you don't shoot a movie scene one time. And I'm just like, man, that whole, you know, shift where I would hope that they don't do anything like that. And but how many animals have been killed in movies, you know, even to think like
Oh
just
yeah.
for the, and people didn't even think of anything of it. Or even, you know, you see a movie and you think everything's fake. Well, how do you get a dog to sound like it's being hurt other than by hurting a dog and recording that sound? So it's
Yeah,
like, how
well,
do you get some of these realistic things happening without actually doing them? And that is kind of disgusting in a lot of ways.
yeah, well, that was the bugs that you were killing. Hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just didn't
Um,
mean anything to us anymore, and it does now.
yeah. I got to actually wrap up here. So it was awesome talking to you.
It was
And
awesome
we'll have
talking
to
to you
do it
too.
in the near future again. So, but thanks so much. And yeah, have a happy new year if I don't talk to you before then.
Sure. What is it? 27. I'm gonna prepare some questions because I had and I didn't put them down, so I forgot. But I'm gonna prepare
Okay.
some questions. I'm gonna, you know, give it a time, and naturally as they arise, I will write them down, and next time I'll ask you to come up, and we can maybe try. I'm not sure. Instagram. I'm not sure. It's up to
Okay.
us.
Yeah, let
Sure.
me know.
So yes, I wish you all the best to, not all the best. What do you say? How do you wish somebody like Happy New Year's
Yeah. Thank you.
celebration and I don't know,
Yeah.
great time, whether you are working or relaxing and um getting new experiences, new channelings. Are you channeling every day?
No, not every day.
No?
I've been kind of on a lull right now. So I'm going to get back into everything starting today, actually. So hopefully have some new
Okay.
messages coming.
So we'll watch your your new messages.
Yeah.
And yeah, enjoy your family time. Bye bye.
Yeah. You as well. See you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.